Chapter 338. It's on fire. It's on fire. Qiao Jin, brother, run. Musilian rushed downstairs and pulled Qiao Jin to run. They were not blind. Of course, they saw the bar on fire. They had to wait to be picked up tonight. The murder case had just been solved, and the bar was already on fire. Damn it, the year was too unlucky for this town. Musilian noticed that Qiao Jin did not move. He said indifferently, "The fire is in the bar. It's so far away from us. Why are you panicking? Fuck, the houses in this town are all connected. What if it burns here?" Mu Chilian had the foresight to be afraid, but Qiao Jin still did not move. She retracted her palm, and the extremely thick black color dissipated. She smiled. "If it really burned here, we would have left long ago." Musilian stared at her. "Are you crazy?" Qiao Jin, "Yes." Musilian, Musichu also came downstairs. Seeing the fire in the distance and hearing the screams of pedestrians, his face was a little heavy. "The car is here to pick us up. Let's go." This time, Qiao Jin did not say anything. He left with Musichu and the others. In the fire, she could still hear Duan Ruyan's screams. It was a replay of what happened 20 years ago. These painful howls were memories from back then, and only she could hear them. She had seen countless scenes more desperate than this. At this moment, her heart was as calm as still water, but it was a little different. No one knew why the bar was suddenly on fire. Fortunately, the fire prevention measures were in place, and the fire was quickly extinguished. No casualties were found, but some property damage was caused. When Qiao Jin and the others returned to the city, they were quickly taken to the airport and left on a plane. She only had time to inform Song Yanqing that she was returning to China. The school did not dare to let them stay here. When they returned to China, Qiao Fei and Mu Zhenming drove to pick them up. When Qiao Fei saw them, she almost cried out, "I heard that a lot of things happened to you abroad. I was so worried." Musichu said in a deep voice, "Mom, we're fine. We just encountered something unexpected." As he said this, his eyes faintly swept over Qiao Jin. "It's good that you're fine." Mu Zhenming patted their shoulders and asked Qiao Jin and the others to get into the car. After getting into the car, Qiao Fei finally calmed down. "I heard that a lot of things happened during your study trip, and a student even died. This news was too serious and could not be suppressed. There was already news from overseas." Qiao Jin said, "This is something that the school should handle." She said it coldly. In fact, the current school was no longer the school of the past. The group of leaders back then had already retired due to various reasons. The principal now was not the same as before. However, there were some things that had to be paid for sooner or later. She looked out of the car window with an indifferent expression. After taking Duan Ruyan's things, she naturally had to do something for her. After returning home that night, Qiao Jin received a call from Song Yanqing. He had already received the news that the school wanted Qiao Jin and the others to return to China. He only sent a message to Qiao Jin to ask if it was about the demonized array master. Qiao Jin replied yes. Song Yanqing understood and said that he would return to China soon. At least he had to find an excuse. He really had something to do abroad. When he returned, Qiao Jin would tell him the specific details of this matter. Chapter 339. The next morning, Qiao Jin went out. It was summer vacation. She wore a coat and went to the funeral home. There were photos of the new deceased hanging inside. Yarrow Hongyan was still smiling. She treated Duan Ruyan as her classmate and bullied her wantonly. The things that happened on the trip were real, but it was the key to Duan Ruyan targeting her. In short, one would not die if one did not seek death. Yarrow Hongyan had many family members. Her body had been brought back to the country and was about to be cremated. In front of her photo, a middle-aged woman was crying herself hoarse. "Why? I knew it. Why? Why can't I avoid this?" Qiao Jin saw the woman's face. Someone was supporting her. She was crying so hard that she could not stand steadily. Someone couldn't bear it and whispered, "The culprit will be caught. They will definitely be caught." No one would have thought that such a thing would happen. She was on a study trip, The woman cried even more desperately. If I had known that they were going to that place, I would never have let her go. I would never have let her go. This person looked exactly the same as the teacher in Duan Ruyan's memory. Back then, she had let her teacher go because of her daughter. Now, her daughter had embarked on the same path of no return. Why? Karma came at the right time. Perhaps Duan Ruyan did not know that the sacrifice she had chosen this time would be the daughter of the teacher she had let go of in a moment of kindness. Qiao Jin did not do anything. Everything was destined. She glanced at the woman and turned to leave. Duan Ruyan was dead. The shackles on her were gone. Qiao Jin chose to save her. Her own karma was involved in this matter. There would be other changes. This matter would not end so easily. Even if she did not use her own means to take revenge, she had to at least let the wicked have their own end. Duan Ruyan actually knew that. She was a smart child. She knew that if she took revenge, she would definitely be reduced to a puppet of the devil. When that time came, more people would die. She was an array formation master and was very powerful. She chose Qiao Jin to save her. Not only would she be free, but she would also be given justice in the future. Although she was already dead. In a villa in the empire where the sun never sets. An ear-piercing shriek rang out, "My puppet is gone. An array formation master puppet that I valued is gone. This is a puppet that was going to be a sacrifice to the emperor. It's gone just like that." Someone comforted her in a low voice. "Don't worry, Joanna. You should figure out what happened first. Why is your puppet gone? Is there anyone who can remove the restriction that the emperor gave you?" Joanna's expression turned ugly. "But there's nothing left. Gone. I can only feel that the aura from the east. Damn Huaxia people and that stinky man who ignored me. They are all Huaxia people. Why are they so arrogant? I'm going to the east. If I can't catch them, I'll kill some Chinese to vent my anger. No, no, no. Do you think Huaxia is still the Huaxia of the past? There are many array masters there, and the spirit group is also watching. You have to keep a low profile. Joanna, the emperor said that we can't cause too much trouble. He said that there might be a powerful existence in the east, so we should avoid going to Huaxia for a while. There's someone more powerful than the emperor." This conversation gradually dissipated in the air. Chapter 340. Duan Ruyan's matter was far from over. Some things had even developed beyond Qiao Jin's expectations. For example, she had caught more fish than she had expected. First of all, Yarrow Hongin's death was not kept a secret from the school. This directly led to the failure of the study trip in the next few years. Those who knew Yarrow Hongyin were incredulous at her death. The school strongly requested the foreign police to investigate the murderer. After all, the nature of this matter was too terrible. However, the school could not shirk its responsibility. At that time, Yarrow Hongyin should have returned to the hotel in the city with them. No one knew why Yarrow Hongyin appeared in that small town at night and was hacked to death. This was undoubtedly the dereliction of duty of the leading professor and the director. But in fact, they were quite innocent. The power of the array was not something ordinary people could resist. There was another student, Duan Ruyan, who seemed to have never existed in the school's memory. In the process of the police investigation, it also attracted the attention of foreign reporters. Coincidentally, there was a big fire in the local bar. After a lot of strange things, insiders of the matter came out one after another, saying that the same thing had happened 20 years ago. A student of the school was burned to death in the hotel. The bar was the reconstruction of the hotel. Now that there was a big fire again, it was equivalent to being destroyed again. This incident happened strangely. The reporters knew that it was a matter of Huaxia. Adhering to the principle of watching a show, they investigated it. In the end, they were surprised to find that when the incident happened, the school was the same as the one they were in now. In other words, 20 years ago, this school burned a student to death, but the incident was not reported. 20 years later, the bar was on fire again, and the student of this school was hacked to death here. How big of a dereliction of duty was this? Qiao Jin's school was called Yanghui University. It was one of the top universities in China, and it was a well-known aristocratic school. Such incidents happened one after another in a university. More than a group of people were going to be laid off. The reporters directly released the news. Because it was abroad, they could not control it at all. When the school saw the news, it was too late. The reporters also interviewed the people who worked in the hotel at that time. It had been a long time, and most of the people involved at that time had disappeared. Some people had been paid to keep quiet, but in order to get rid of the responsibility of this matter, they directly came forward and said that the school did not allow them to talk about it. At that time, they had asked the students who were burned to death, and the school said that no one was in the hotel. In fact, they all knew that there was another student resting in the hotel at that time. Because of this, the person in charge of the hotel was sentenced to prison. When this matter was exposed, the world was in an uproar. Needless to say, the foreign media acted as soon as they heard the news. They couldn't wait to smear Huaxia's name as much as they could. Therefore, this time, it was another piece of evidence that could be used against Huaxia. When the country's leaders saw this, they were dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the old leaders of Yanghui University who had already retired felt their hearts turn cold. The foreign media's reports were posted on Weibo, and Weibo's trending searches exploded. 20 years ago, Yanghui University students were locked in a hotel and burned alive. Yanghui University concealed the death of a student burned to death, suspected of being bullied in college. The 3 hot searches were shocking, followed by an explosion that could not be ignored. Netizens instantly butchered these few topics to hundreds of millions of discussions. Chapter 341. I can't believe that such a cruel thing happened abroad 20 years ago. It's our Chinese compatriots. Burned alive, burned alive. Oh my God, a girl in her 20s, what kind of torture did she suffer before she died? According to the latest media report, an insider revealed that Death Girl was not feeling well at that time and was resting in the hotel. A group of students from the school went out for an activity. At that time, the hotel staff called them after work to ask if all the students were there. After all, the communication network was not very developed 20 years ago, and foreign countries had a very human right to get off work system. There was no one in the hotel. It was the students of the school who said that there was no one in the hotel. The teachers also said that there was no one in the hotel. In the end, an accident happened. Moreover, the girl seemed to be bullied, so it was obvious that they wanted to lock her up in the hotel to scare her or bully her. They did not expect that it would cause such a major tragedy. It is said that the girl who was burned to death is surnamed Duan. She is a college student that her parents painstakingly cultivated from the countryside. A female college student cultivated 20 years ago. It is really heartbreaking. It's too scary. I can't believe that this happened in Zhongbin University. This matter is so big. I don't know how many leaders of Yanghui University will be fired. Oh my God. Weibo, forums, all the places that could be discussed were in an uproar. The school was dumbfounded by this matter. All the public relations and public opinion were useless. The current principal had to shoulder the responsibility, so it was inevitable that he would be fired. In fact, the current principal was quite innocent. The main responsibility was the previous principal. The previous principal had retired now, but it was inevitable that he would be investigated. Qiao Jin's karma was too strong. The things that had been suppressed for 20 years exploded. No matter who was sitting in this position now, they would be implicated. The group of students who bullied Duan Ruyan back then naturally could not escape. The reason why they could escape responsibility back then was more or less because they had a strong stance. Now that the matter was exposed, in order to protect themselves, the old leaders exposed many important people. Their enemies were also eyeing them covetously. This time, they could not escape if they did not lose a layer of skin. In general, the people who killed Duan Ruyan back then had to pay the price. However, they were 20 years late. Justice that came late was not justice at all. Because she had been dead for 20 years, those people had enjoyed 20 more years of good times. Qiao Jin was squatting in the courtyard, fishing with Mu Xiangshan's fishing rod. She didn't even put the bait. When Mu Xiangshan came over and saw her, he glared at her. You, Jiang Taigong, are fishing willing to take the bait? Qiao Jin, yeah, I came when fate brought me here. Mu Xiangshan, you're crazy. He rolled his eyes and sat down. The old man and the young man looked at the calm surface of the pond. After a while, Mu Xiangshan suddenly said, the matter at your school is quite big, huh? Qiao Jin, I think so. Mu Xiangshan, looking at her lukewarm expression, he felt a little angry. Just as Mu Xiangshan was about to say something, a servant came in and reported, Master, young Master Song is here. Mu Xiangshan, he stood up and said, please come in. Then, he glanced at Qiao Jin and said sarcastically, it seems that there are still people who care about you. I don't know what kind of luck you have. With that, he left. Chapter 342. When Qiao Jin heard that Song Yanqing was here, she put down her fishing rod. Since there was no bait, she let him fish on his own. Whether or not the fish took the bait was not within her expectations. She washed her hands and walked to the living room to see Song Yanqing. Mu Xiangshan was talking to him. Since they were the only two people in the house, Mu Xiangshan naturally received him. Today, Song Yanqing was wearing an ink-colored shirt, black slim-fit casual pants, and custom-made leather shoes. His shirt was painted with many swaying bamboo leaves, which made him look even younger. His eyebrows were as cold and tough as pine and bamboo, but he also had the elegant charm of a mature man. When he saw Song Yanqing, Qiao Jin waved at him and then said to Mu Xiangshan, Grandpa, I'm taking him to the backyard to fish. Mu Xiangshan was about to say that if he went fishing, he might not be able to eat fish until his next life. However, Song Yanqing was here, so he held back and only said, go ahead. Anyway, Song Yanqing was here to see Qiao Jin, so he was very clear about this fact. Song Yanqing smiled apologetically. Grandpa Mu, I'm going with Qiao Jin. Mu Xiangshan said, okay. Otherwise, why would you stay and chat with me? Song Yanqing followed Qiao Jin and saw that she was wearing a pure black one-piece dress with shoulder straps today. As she walked, she fluttered in the wind. However, she was wearing a pair of flat sandals. Her pink toes were exposed, and they were all small and cute. It was probably more convenient to look at them at home. He couldn't help but laugh. In his heart, he thought that she looked good in anything. However, her mother seemed to be in charge of her clothes. Auntie had good taste. She turned her head and asked him, what are you laughing at? Song Yanqing said, I'm not laughing at you. Qiao Jin said, I feel like you're laughing at me. Song Yanqing said, I'm just laughing. I don't mean anything else. Only then did Qiao Jin stop asking him. He brought him to the backyard, where there was a man-made fish pond. Fishing was purely a pastime, but it was a good way to pass the time. Qiao Jin said, do you know how to fish? Song Yanqing said, yes. Qiao Jin gave him the fishing rod. This is mine. Song Yanqing picked it up and looked at it. He couldn't help but laugh. You're not going to use the bait. Qiao Jin said, Grandpa is fishing with earthworms. I don't want to touch it. Only then did she speak the truth. Song Yanqing said, I don't like it either. Is there any other fish feed? Qiao Jin shook his head. I didn't take it. Should I ask someone to bring it over? Song Yanqing put down his fishing rod. I'm not fishing anymore. Let's sit here and talk. Qiao Jin thought for a moment. That's fine. She sat on a small stool, looking rather well behaved. Song Yanqing sat on a recliner next to her and looked at the scenery in front of him. He said slowly, have you dealt with the matter this time? I saw a lot of news in the country. The matter had blown up so much that he would definitely know about it. He thought for a moment and knew that it probably had something to do with Qiao Jin. After all, there couldn't be so many coincidences happening in the same town. Qiao Jin nodded. A wisp of black qi flowed out of his fingertips, but compared to the usual black, this qi was much thicker and seemed to have a halo. She said, let's see how the rest of the matter develops naturally. The rest has been dealt with. She will rest in peace. Song Yanqing heard her whisper and thought of the report he had seen on the news. Qiao Jin was referring to the girl who had been burned to death 20 years ago. Her death was indeed very tragic. Chapter 343. Thinking of what had happened abroad, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. You said she ate and lived with you for several days. It's a formation. Qiao Jin said directly. This formation has been set up for decades and has become quite mature. So I just felt that something was wrong at that time. Usually, she acted based on her intuition outside. Now that she was still facing the backlash, she rarely set up a formation to deal with everything. If she set up a large formation, she would instantly know that something was wrong with Duan Ruyan. There is a chain of interests behind Duan Ruyan. Someone is using people like her to choose sacrifices. After all, this can make the chosen sacrifice disappear from people's memories and save a lot of trouble. Sacrifice? Song Yanqing frowned slightly. He felt that he would discover something new from Qiao Jin's story all the time. At the same time, the new term gave him a sense of discomfort. Sacrifices are sacrifices, of course. They are useful. Qiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing. The meaning in her cold eyes was obvious. Song Yanqing didn't need Qiao Jin to remind him too much. If he could be caught as a sacrifice, his fate could be imagined. He had always thought that these things would only be seen in cults. He didn't expect that a formation master would also need this kind of thing. Qiao Jin didn't want to tell him about her sworn enemy for the time being because it was her own business. The formation master who can control Duan Ruyan has already become a powerful formation master. They should have a large group. Otherwise, there is no need to touch Duan Ruyan. She carefully analyzed the situation and thought about the possibility that her sworn enemy from back then was also developing his own forces in this era. He was probably some big shot hiding behind the scenes, and the group of array masters he had raised was slowly surfacing. However, Qiao Jin wasn't worried about this. After she completely dealt with her backlash, the first thing she would do was to kill him. She would eliminate all future troubles. Song Yanqing frowned slightly. The things behind them shouldn't be simple. I think people like them may not only be formations but also control many things in this world, such as commerce, power, and finance. This was very natural. With power, they would never be satisfied with the status quo. They will control everything that is within their reach. Song Yanqing speculated based on Qiao Jin's words. There is an organization behind this. There are several famous organizations abroad that control many people. I don't know if it has anything to do with this organization. Maybe. Qiao Jin got to the point. The spirit group has a lot to do with them, but the spirit group may not know what they are doing behind the scenes. Just like how the spirit group was controlled by different families, there should also be similar organizations controlled overseas. I've killed Duan Ruyan this time. They can't find me, but some of them will suffer the backlash. They'll probably come to Huaxia soon. Song Yanqing's expression was a little solemn. He realized that from now on, the world would begin to be in turmoil. But I have another thing to tell you this time. He looked at Qiao Jin seriously. Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. You found someone to swap your life providence with? Song Yanqing said, it's just a guess. It's possible. He took out his phone and pulled up a news report. It's quite surprising. Qiao Jin took a closer look and found that it was a photoshopped fashion magazine photo. Even so, he could still see the other party's astonishing appearance. The mixed-race American superstar, Ferdinand. Chapter 344. Qiao Jin let out an ah and said, it's pretty. Song Yanqing, Qiao Jin said, but you're the best looking. Song Yanqing had to admit that this sentence pleased him. He couldn't help but laugh. Guess why I think it's him? Qiao Jin glanced at him. Intuition. Just like her own intuition, she had noticed something wrong with this person the moment she saw him. It was as if someone else's face had grown on his body. Of course, this didn't mean that he had plastic surgery or anything. It was just a metaphor. It was as if he had stolen something from someone else. But it was probably too eye-catching, so Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing had never thought of starting with a well-known person. They hadn't expected him to be so high-profile. I happened to see his photo when I went abroad this time. I felt that he was very familiar at first glance, as if he was. Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows. Another me in this world. In fact, he doesn't look like me at all. Even Yi doesn't think that we are similar at all. First, I got someone to investigate and ruled out the fact that he might be my brother. The rest is the truth. If he wasn't your brother, then he was the one who swapped fate. Just as Qiao Jin trusted his intuition, Song Yanqing also trusted his intuition. After he became a spiritualist, some of his intuitions were terrifyingly accurate. Ferdinand hadn't actually appeared before. He had only appeared recently. A TV series had become a hit in the entire United States. Even China was shocked. He had a lot of fans, almost all over the world, all because he had an intoxicating and peerless face. He was also the son of the retired former world superstar, Louisa. Louisa's husband was a mysterious super-rich man in China with a powerful background. Song Yanqing didn't tell his father for the time being. Instead, he chose to tell Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's reaction made him even more certain that he had found the right person. Qiao Jin looked at the other party for a long time and suddenly revealed a strange smile. I think the other party must have raised the objection of his family to become a celebrity. If it were me, I would definitely not let someone who stole someone else's life providence be so high profile. It was because he was too high profile that he was immediately discovered. Of course, if it weren't for Qiao Jin, this matter might not have been discovered. But there were no IFS. Even though he had discovered Ferdinand, he wasn't anxious. He just slowly asked Qiao Jin, actually, I'd like to know, what's the difference between him swapping my fate and myself? There's a big difference. Qiao Jin said, you still have some things that are deceived, and you've been tainted with his bad luck. He should be the one who's weak, not you. And the most important thing is your luck. If it weren't for him, you would have led the Song family to a better stage long ago, and not be like this now. Of course, to be specific, your luck being taken away by him is the biggest disadvantage. Song Yanqing suddenly smiled and said, actually, I don't think my luck is too bad. At least, I still met you, right? Qiao Jin pinched his chin and looked up at him, a little puzzled. Those bottomless black pupils were like obsidian, full of charming brilliance. At this moment, he was looking at him attentively. Qiao Jin thought for a moment and said, actually, what you said makes sense. It means that your luck is stronger than I thought. Song Yanqing. Chapter 345. The topic returned to Ferdinand. The two of them looked at Ferdinand's information. From the information, Ferdinand had been abroad since he was a child, which corresponded to their initial guess. Secondly, his mother was a foreigner, so it was more likely that his father had handled it. Qiao Jin asked, who's his father? Song Yanqing said, Shikanyun, a very powerful person. He was also a famous star in China at the end of the last century. With the wealth he accumulated in the entertainment industry and the help of a woman, he entered the business world and started some illegal activities. Later, after the country strictly controlled him, he went ashore and started a legitimate business. Now, his business is very large, and he has some dealings with our Song family. Qiao Jin heard the main point. With the help of a woman. That woman can't be Louisa, right? Song Yanqing's lips curled up slightly. He gave Qiao Jin a more straightforward explanation. She's probably his mistress. Although he might not have been willing, he was a star at that time. Even if he wasn't willing, it was his own choice. Later, Shikanyun was also a ruthless person. He used this woman to make a fortune, and when he rose, he kicked her away. He also met Louisa with his appearance. There was no news of the woman who had once kept Shikanyun. Only Shikanyun knew where she had gone. Qiao Jin was deep in thought. Shikanyun's information could still be found now. After all, he was also a well-known star back then. If it weren't for his outstanding face, he wouldn't have been so infatuated by the rich woman. There were many rich women who wanted to spend money for Shikanyun back then. However, this man was poisonous. There was no news of him in recent years. It seemed that he had disappeared at the beginning of this century. He didn't expect to find a wife in the entertainment industry. Now, his son also wanted to be in the entertainment industry. It was probably his genes. Ferdinand's genes entered the entertainment industry, so it was destined that he would become popular. Qiao Jin looked and concluded, It's not their family who swapped their fate. It should be someone they know. The cost of swapping fate was huge. If they swapped it themselves, there would be all kinds of abnormalities. However, there was nothing wrong with Louisa and Shutsanyun's information. That could only mean that someone had helped them switch. He's actually willing to help a child change his fate. What's the story behind this? Qiao Jin stroked his chin in amusement. Song Yanqing then asked the key question, if I want to change my life chart back, what do I need to do? You don't have to do anything. Qiao Jin stood up and said, it's easy to change a fate chart. You don't need to kill Ferdinand. You just need to destroy the spiritual seed of the array master who changed the fate chart. Even if he dies, his spiritual seed will still be there. Once his spiritual seed disappears, the array he set up will also disappear. Then, the fate chart will naturally return. So you have to keep an eye on Ferdinand and see who he contacts. After a pause, Qiao Jin said, it's best to investigate his parents. I don't think they told Ferdinand that his life was stolen. If he knew, he would never appear in the entertainment industry. This is a very dangerous thing. Song Yanqing speculated playfully, maybe he knows, but is very confident. Even if I find out, I can't do anything to him. Chapter 346. Qiao Jin said, that's fine. I'm here. She just couldn't find them now, but that was because they still had to survive. Qiao Jin was never afraid of anyone if they were to face them head-on. Of course, even if she were to play dirty now, she wouldn't give anyone an opportunity to take advantage of her. As she thought of this, a memory suddenly flashed through her mind. She remembered that she had been set up by her old rival, but she couldn't remember how. She only vaguely remembered a sentence. We were born different from humans. They were meant to be slaves. Why do you have to treat them well? She didn't know who said this, but it was obvious that she wouldn't say such inhumane words. Song Yanqing didn't feel uncomfortable with such protective words. He just smiled faintly and said, yes, I feel very safe with you around. Qiao Jin, you're my friend. As a friend, I will be your most solid support. Song Yanqing couldn't help but laugh. You're right. So, if you have any problems in other areas, I can also be your most solid support. Qiao Jin, I don't have any problems. Song Yanqing, how did you do on the exam? Qiao Jin, I think it was pretty good. Of course, compared to Song Yanqing, who was once favored by the heavens, excellent results might not mean much to him. Song Yanqing, then you've improved. It's fine as long as you do better than before. We can take it slow. After all, you're still 2 years away from graduation. Qiao Jin nodded. Yes, it's summer vacation now. It's time for me to rest. This arrangement was quite reasonable. Students would have 2 months of entertainment time in addition to studying. Of course, these 2 months were for Qiao Jin. The other students would also work hard during the summer vacation and participate in a lot of tutoring and other professional skills. Just like Musilian and Musichu. Even Musilian, who didn't do a proper job, would participate in various activities with his brother. Rich second-generation activities like horse racing and golf were elegant and cultivated sentiments. Of course, these activities were never part of Qiao Jin's consideration. Even though Qiao Fei had mentioned it many times, he didn't give up when he saw that she wasn't interested. Song Yanqing also mentioned this matter. Actually, you can find something to do during the summer vacation. Like your brother, you can make more friends. When he said this sentence, he had some inexplicable hesitation in his heart. He did not understand the source of this hesitation. Such a powerful child could actually have a wider world, but Song Yanqing felt that there was no need to make new friends. It was as if Qiao Jin was his only friend. Qiao Jin, not interested. She was too lazy to do things that she didn't want to do. It was the same reason that she was too lazy to change her WeChat name. This answer was not out of Song Yanqing's expectations. He thought for a moment. It's boring to stay at home all the time. I'm going to play chess with a master in the afternoon. Do you want to come and watch? In the past, when he was bored at home, he rarely interacted with people of the same age. Basically, he accompanied some very old people to play chess. After all, Quiet entertainment that tested one's patience had become an extra pastime now. Qiao Jin was a little confused. Play chess. Song Yanqing, go. Qiao Jin thought for a moment and nodded. Okay. Chapter 347. A special guest came to Jiao Ink Shop today. This was a relatively low-key club, and the distinguished guests who came and went were basically old people. The environment here was quiet and pleasant, so it was very popular among the old people. Today, however, a curious customer came to the ink shop. Many of the old people who had seen big scenes, and even those who used to be all-powerful in society, were now craning their necks and looking curiously in one direction. In the go room of the family's ink shop, there was an indescribably handsome and rich young master sitting upright, playing chess with an elderly man. If other people were here, they would probably exclaim in surprise when they saw the old man. However, this old man was a little absent-minded while playing chess. From time to time, he would look sideways in one direction. After the elegant young master placed a chess piece, he looked at him slightly. It's rare to see you not paying attention when playing chess. Cough. The old man suddenly coughed loudly, and then retracted his gaze. It's not like you suddenly dropped a bomb today, it really made people curious. Song Yanqing just smiled helplessly. I used to bring back a lot of rare things from abroad, but I've never seen you like this. Today, I brought someone here, why are you so curious? That's different, that's different. At the mention of this, the old man was excited. He didn't even care about placing a chess piece. He looked at the back of a figure. Recently, I've heard people talking about it. Could it be true? You've brought her here, so she must be extraordinary. It's the first time in so many years. I'm very pleased. He looked in the direction of the calligraphy and painting shop opposite. Although the museum wasn't big, the collection was something that even the museums outside would be envious of. A girl in a white pantsuit was looking at these things curiously. She didn't know much, she was just curious. Now, people felt that what attracted attention was not the calligraphy and paintings themselves, but this beautiful figure. Even these old people who had countless outstanding children had to admit that this girl was the most eye-catching they had ever seen. Not only was she beautiful, but her temperament was really rare. If she was born in their era, who knew how many distinguished scholars would bow down to her? Now, it was not surprising that the young master of the Song family had taken a fancy to her. Moreover, this indirectly proved that young Master Song's taste was really good. He hadn't made a move for 25 years, but now, he had picked the best one. Song Yanqing smiled faintly. You think too much. We're just friends now. Friends? When the old man heard this, he actually had a somewhat disgusted expression. I still don't believe my grandson's words. It's fine if I believe that you're not gay, but now you still say that you're a friend. Don't tell me you want to learn from those bastards. You're not that kind of person. Song Yanqing, it's still too early for a young lady to understand these things. The old man was a little surprised. Really? How could there still be young people who didn't understand these ambiguous feelings? Especially in the imperial capital. Don't blame him for looking at people through colored glasses. It was really rare to find such a pure and innocent person in this day and age. Song Yanqing, it's true. She was smarter than others in some aspects, but that was because the things she came into contact with were different from ordinary people. She actually didn't know much about worldly feelings. Song Yanqing had already seen through it. Chapter 348. TSK, 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 TSK. The old man was even more curious. How could he not understand Song Yanqing these days? He could only say that the young lady was really ruthless. He glanced at Qiao Jin again and continued to ask, do you have such thoughts? Song Yanqing paused slightly when he heard that. He lowered his eyes and then smiled. It was like the moon in the wind. One could only see the beauty, but one could not understand the meaning behind it. I can't deny it, but I can't be sure either. He was only slightly moved, perhaps because Qiao Jin was different from the rest. However, before he was completely confident, he would not easily reveal anything. After all, He could see that Xiao Jin did not have such thoughts at all. She was extremely pure. Song Yanqing did not want to rush to disrupt this beauty. How rare. The old man had only heard rumors from his grandson that Song Yanqing had not found a girlfriend for more than 20 years. Even if it was due to physical reasons, it was either a physical problem, a mental problem, or a homosexual. Later on, they were all suspicious. Now that he saw this, he was much more relieved. That's good. No wonder there had been rumors a while ago. Now it seemed that it was not groundless. To be able to be close to Song Yanqing was somewhat special. Ji Pinggan is here, someone whispered. The old man and Song Yanqing both heard it. Naturally, Xiao Jin also heard it. Her eyes only moved slightly, then she focused on the calligraphy in front of her. She did not understand it, but she could feel some of the artistic conception. She only felt that this person's drawing was very beautiful. Ji Pinggan walked in from outside with his hands behind his back, frowning slightly. When he saw everyone, a kind smile appeared on his face. After greeting each of them, he came to the chess room where Song Yanqing and the old man were. Old Kai, I knew you were playing chess with Yanqing again. How was the game? When Ji Pinggan saw the old man, he smiled. The old man was called Bai Jiangkai. He was their good friend. Bai Jiangkai laughed loudly and said, "It's only been a while. Yanqing's chess skills are getting more and more ridiculous. It's hard for me to win a game against him." Ji Pinggan rebutted, "You've been like this since a few years ago. You don't have to say such polite words." Bai Jiangkai said, "Go away." Ji Pinggan also laughed, and the frown on his face eased a little. Song Yanqing also called out gently, "Grandpa Ji, long time no see." Ji Pinggan nodded. "How have you been recently?" Song Yanqing said, "Not bad." Ji Pinggan, "That's good." He stood at the side and watched the game between the two of them. Clearly, he was prepared to watch the game. Bai Jiangkai and Song Yanqing looked at each other. After placing down their black pieces, Bai Jiangkai said faintly, "Olden, it's best if you don't worry too much about the matters of the children. At our age, what else do you want? Wasn't he just trying to make himself feel better? Why do you care so much? You still can't get anything good out of it." He snorted coldly. When Ji Pinggan heard this, he was a little worried. He could only sigh. "I wish." Many things had happened in the Ji family recently. This matter was related to Ji Fanjing. Everyone knew that his mother was a mistress back then. Ji Pinggan's elder brother was already old, and now was the best time to fight for power. Under his father's arrangement, Ji Fanjing was going to enter the company's headquarters to start an internship. At first, he was given a small management position, but he was squeezed by his second brother's people. Ji Fanjing was made a basic intern, but he couldn't do anything. Chapter 349. It would have been fine if that was the case, but Ji Fanjing's mother was not convinced. She rarely came back, and because of this, she had been telling Ji Chiue about it. Ji Chiue was also confused, so he told his father about it. Ji Pinggan could not say anything to him, so he could only go to his eldest brother. His eldest brother rearranged it, and his second brother's family was beside him. In other words, they were saying that Ji Fanjing was just the child of a mistress, and he was an illegitimate child back then. Even if he was promoted, he would still be an illegitimate child. Ji Pinggan was so angry that he choked. It had been so many years, and he had already accepted what happened back then. Moreover, he had watched Ji Fanjing grow up. No matter what, he was still his biological grandson. How could he listen to it? He was not convinced, so he said a few words to his second brother. Unexpectedly, his eldest brother was so angry that he was sent to the hospital again, and this news spread. That was why it was said that every family had their own difficulties. Ji Pinggan said, "She's making a fuss every day. It's impossible to pretend that you didn't hear it. Big brother has already rearranged it. She wants her son to be the manager directly, and it's in the headquarters of the group. She doesn't even think about whether it's suitable or not. You have to at least be able to convince people." Although he didn't let his parents become university teachers or people's teachers when he was fighting for the world, he should be part of the group of professors now. However, The Ji family also provided a lot of help in business. Later on, when his parents were old, Ji Ping'an's temperament became gentler. He merged with the family business and only took shares, but left his son with a lot of benefits. At least his two brothers did not take advantage of him. Now, because of his grandson, things were getting ugly. Ji Ping'an said as he looked at Song Yanqing. If I had a grandson like Yanqing, I think my eldest brother would have no objections even if I asked him to give up his position. Song Yanqing laughed. Grandpa Ji, you're exaggerating, Bai Jiankai mocked Ji Ping'an. Go away, you don't have that fortune. Besides, what do you think of triumphant return by saying that? Triumphant return is not bad either. Ji Triumphant Return was the outstanding grandson that his eldest brother had nurtured. In terms of ability, he was definitely better than other young masters, but his temper was indeed a little too strange. Ji Ping'an, old Master Ji, we meet again. While Ji Ping'an was still sighing, he suddenly heard a clear voice. He looked up and saw that it was Qiao Jin. He was a little surprised. Little girl, you're here too? He had seen this girl a few times and had always had a deep impression of her. Qiao Jin smiled and said, yes. Seeing Qiao Jin, for some reason, Ji Ping'an felt that the irritation in his heart had calmed down. This girl seemed to have the ability to make people feel better. He also smiled and said, young people nowadays rarely like this place. There aren't many who are willing to be meticulous here. Bai Jiang pouted. Guanqing brought him here. Ji Ping'an was a little surprised. However, when he thought of some rumors, he put away his surprise. It was a pity. He felt that Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin were both outstanding. At that time, he had even thought of marriage. However, it was difficult to find someone in the Ji family who was compatible with Song Yanqing, so he gave up. As for Qiao Jin, he had also thought about it. At first, he wanted to do what Mu Xiangshan said, but later, no one was good enough for Qiao Jin. He felt that she would be wronged if she was matched with anyone. It was a pity. If Triumphant Return's temper wasn't bad, Ji Ping'an would have wanted to be the matchmaker. However, he could not harm Qiao Jin. Chapter 350. He didn't expect that these two children, who were both outstanding in his heart, would play together. Now that he looked at it, it was true that outstanding people should play with outstanding people. As for what was so outstanding about Qiao Jin, he couldn't quite put his finger on it. But he just felt that she was outstanding. There was also an indescribable sense of intimacy. He had a good impression of Qiao Jin. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin and felt that there was a deeper meaning behind her smile. Qiao Jin hadn't told Song Yanqing about her relationship with Ji Ping'an, so Song Yanqing only vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't guess why. Ji Ping'an smiled kindly. Do you know how to play chess? Qiao Jin, no. Ji Ping'an, it's okay, you can learn. Qiao Jin glanced at the complicated Go game. You can play Gamoku. Although she could learn it quickly, she wasn't willing. She had played Gamoku on her phone before. Ji Ping'an, fine, Gamoku it is. In the last room, there were two tables. Song Yanqing and Bai Jiankai played Go, while Qiao Jin and Ji Ping'an played Gamoku. It was a harmonious scene. After a while, Song Yanqing saw that it was about time. He got up and said goodbye to Bai Jiankai. He was going to take Qiao Jin to dinner. Ji Ping'an and Qiao Jin played Gamoku for so long. Although it was simple, they found it interesting. It was better than listening to people cry at home. When Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing left, Ji Ping'an sighed. What a perfect match. My family can't find a match for you. Bai Jiankai laughed. Who hasn't thought of this before? But young people nowadays are pursuing their own love. Old fogies like us shouldn't get involved in their affairs. If they got involved, there would be restless things like Ji Chiue. And there were many of them now. Ji Ping'an said faintly, that's right. When Qiao Jin was sent home that night, he took some time to check Weibo. She usually didn't pay much attention to it. In fact, it was because of Duan Ruyan. After a day of hot searches, there were still no signs of it subsiding. All kinds of things that had happened in the past were exposed. There were even rumors that the classmates who had bullied Du and Ruyan back then were now married and had children. Their children were about to go to college, and they were being harassed and bombarded by netizens. It could be considered a different kind of retribution. However, this alone was far from enough. The previous principal of Yanghui University had retired a long time ago, but he still had to take responsibility. It was worth mentioning that Du and Ruyan's parents did not show up. Back then, they were just an ordinary couple in the countryside. She didn't know how they were doing now. Xiao Jin did not deliberately think about it. Back then, the couple had already received compensation. Now that the incident had happened again, someone would come to apologize. Moreover, he had once sensed through Du and Ruyan that she should still have a younger sister. He just didn't have time to tell her. She was probably the child her parents gave birth to after they lost her. At least that was a consolation. However, at night, Xiao Jin suddenly opened his eyes. She had already fallen asleep, but she suddenly turned over and sat up in bed. In the blink of an eye, a red dot flashed. Through these, she saw something she had never seen before. She frowned. It was not her nature to be nosy. It was just that, who asked her to take her things? She should be responsible for the aftermath. She sensed a special scene. It was very likely that it was Du and Ruyan's younger sister whom she had never met. Why did she sense it? It was probably because the other party was also an array master. Chapter 351. Disregarding the storm on Weibo, today's high-end residential district was very peaceful. It was already very late, but the row of houses was still lit. Not only was it bustling, but it was also very warm. A 17 or 18-year-old girl stood downstairs and looked up at the house, her eyes filled with coldness. If she hadn't seen her elder sister's matter on Weibo, she probably wouldn't have known that her elder sister's death was so tragic. Her parents had given birth to her when they were old. She had only vaguely heard them say that she had an elder sister who had passed away in an accident before she was born. Because they were too sad, they had given birth to her. She felt an indescribable regret toward the elder sister she had never seen before. She had only seen her sister's picture. Now that she had seen the news on Weibo, if she hadn't confirmed that her elder sister's name and appearance were exactly the same as the one she had seen and heard, she wouldn't have dared to believe that her elder sister had died so tragically. It was no wonder her parents had never talked about her elder sister. She was furious. Her elder sister was so outstanding. How could the person who had bullied her back then still be alive? She had been different since she was young. She didn't know why she had such a special ability. She seemed to be able to make use of things that others couldn't see to create the effect she wanted. It was as if she had learned it all by herself. Today, she was thinking the same thing. Her eyes were red. Through some information, she had learned that the person who had bullied her elder sister lived here. She couldn't go up to the high-end residential district, but she could set it on fire. Back then, her elder sister had been trapped in a hotel and burned to death. Why couldn't this family do the same? Strange dots flickered in her eyes. With a move of her finger, she connected those dots and trapped them in the apartment building, gradually forming the image of a flame. The flame gradually expanded, and only she could see it. Accompanied by the rising flames, it slowly descended on the floor of the apartment building she had seen earlier. As long as the flame entered, their house would instantly be set on fire. She would be able to avenge her elder sister, Hong. She didn't notice that along with her movements, black chi was slowly floating around her, waiting for the flame to rise into the air. Pa! A hand suddenly landed on her shoulder. Du and Nyanru were startled. The formation shattered, and she turned around to see an exquisite girl. She really looked like someone who had walked out of a TV series. Her long hair reached her waist and was slightly curled. There were even a few strands of hair floating in front of her forehead. Coupled with her cold face, she looked very much like a princess from a manga she had read. She was so surprised that her mouth opened slightly. "What are you doing?" A cold person spoke in a cold and cheerless manner. His voice had a different kind of air to it. That pair of eyes locked onto her, making her feel as if she had nowhere to hide. Du and Nyanru's face turned red as she stuttered, "Who are you?" Firstly, she felt a little guilty. She had never shown this kind of power in front of others before. She also knew that she was not normal, so she was afraid that she would be treated as a freak and captured for research. At this moment, she was afraid that Qiao Jin would notice something unusual. Qiao Jin sneered, "You don't need to know who I am, but what do you want to do? Do you think killing their entire family will solve this matter?" She glanced at her surroundings and saw that the black airflow had disappeared silently and gradually dissipated. Chapter 352. Qiao Jin's words caused Duan Yanru's face to turn pale. "What are you talking about? I'm just passing by." She didn't dare to admit that she wanted to kill this family. Qiao Jin said, "If you want to target someone, you shouldn't target this family. Apart from her, no one else in this family has done anything wrong. If you kill them, you'll only be seriously eroded. It's not easy for your family to give birth to 2 formation masters. Don't disappoint your sister." Duan Yanru was dumbfounded. "You? Who are you?" She was shocked. Qiao Jin looked around. There were surveillance cameras in the vicinity of this high-end residential area. If he stayed here for too long, he would be suspicious. "Come with me." Duan Yanru bit her lip. She didn't dare to believe that Qiao Jin was a stranger. However, his words gave her a feeling of trust. She didn't want to refuse. Qiao Jin had already turned around. Looking at Qiao Jin's back, she hesitantly followed. But when she turned back to look at the apartment building, she felt somewhat unwilling. When they arrived at the bustling street, Qiao Jin asked, "Have you eaten?" Duan Yanru was about to say that she had eaten when her stomach began to rumble. Her face turned even redder. She had been too shocked by the news and had rushed to the capital. She hadn't had time to eat and had used the excuse of going to her classmate's house to play. She had to go back tomorrow. She felt that if she did it flawlessly, no one would suspect her. She could go back and act as if nothing had happened. She didn't know where that thought had come from. She was just too angry. Her sister's death was the responsibility of those people. Why were they able to live without caring about anything until now? On what basis? Every year, on the anniversary of her sister's death, she would see her white-haired parents crying in front of her sister's grave. She didn't know why in the past. She only felt that after so many years, her parents still couldn't let go. Only now did she know who could let go. Her daughter had died so miserably. She had never met her elder sister, but she felt that she was the best person in the world. She was her younger sister, so she should avenge her elder sister. Qiao Jin saw her face change rapidly and chuckled. "Shall I treat you to a meal?" "Who are you?" Duan Yanru asked suspiciously. "Qiao Jin, your sister's friend." Duan Yanru, soon, her face turned even redder. "Who are you trying to fool? My sister has been dead for 20 years, and you look only 20 years old. How can you be my sister's friend?" After saying that, she reacted and became even more flustered. "No, you know who my sister is." Qiao Jin said, "Hurry up. You're wandering alone in the middle of the night. Aren't you afraid that if you get caught, your parents will lose you as well?" Duan Yanru subconsciously retorted, "Of course not. I'm not afraid even if I encounter bad people." She had the ability to resist all of this. Qiao Jin sneered. "Do you think you're the only formation master in this world? A formation master who didn't belong to anyone was simply a delicious cake placed in front of those people. If they learned that Duan Yanru had a younger sister who was also a formation master, she would be doomed." Formation. What is a formation master? Duan Yanru asked impulsively. In truth, she didn't even know what this world was. She didn't even know that she was a formation master. She only thought that her special ability was a gift from the heavens. Chapter 353. It was indeed a blessing, but it would also lead to many dangers. In the end, Duan Yanru left with Qiao Jin out of curiosity. She hadn't eaten yet. She had thought that Qiao Jin would bring her somewhere, but they had ended up at a fast food restaurant that was open 24 hours a day. Duan Yanru, it didn't seem too good to discuss such matters in this place. Furthermore, she felt that the pharaoh-like Qiao Jin shouldn't have come to such a place. However, Qiao Jin had come. It was already late at night, and there weren't many people eating. The fast food restaurant was large, so they could find a place in the corner where no one would disturb them. When the waiter saw Xiao Jin, he was a bit surprised. Handsome people were treated differently. Even when he was ordering, the waiter spoke softly, afraid that Xiao Jin would be dissatisfied if he was too loud. After casually ordering a few sets, Duan Yanru whispered, "You ordered too much. We can't finish it. It's a waste. Xiao Jin, you can just eat whatever you want." Duan Yanru, the two of them found a corner and sat down. Duan Yanru was conflicted, but she still asked, "You said that you're my big sister's friend. Is that true? My big sister has already passed away for 20 years. Furthermore, the news had revealed her big sister's matter recently." Duan Yanru was very suspicious that Xiao Jin had come here with other motives. She had seen on the news that the leaders who had concealed the matter back then would be punished. Could it be that he had been sent here by the leaders? Xiao Jin rested his elbows on the table and tilted his body slightly to look at her. "When did your powers appear?" "What?" Duan Yanru's eyes flickered. "I really don't know what you're talking about." Her vigilance was strong enough. Xiao Jin smiled. "It's good to have vigilance, and it's also good to have ability. However, you shouldn't use your ability to do things you can't do. If your big sister knew about this, she wouldn't be happy. Besides, you still have your parents. They're already old, and it wasn't easy for them to raise you. You shouldn't waste your life on this. Those people aren't worth it." Hearing that, Duan Yanru felt even more guilty. She had truly come to the capital in a fit of rage, and she hadn't thought too much about it. After all, she was only 18 years old. She hadn't been an adult for long, so she couldn't think properly about some things. It was also because of his young age that he was easily forced out by Xiao Jin. But did my sister die in vain? I've seen those people. The news said that at most, they'll be condemned morally, but they won't be punished by the law. I can't accept this for my sister." Her eyes reddened at the mention of her sister. Xiao Jin said, "You are only 18 years old this year. You have never seen your sister. Why do you still want to avenge her?" "Because she's my sister." Duan Yanru choked. "Although I haven't seen her, my parents have told me many times that she's very outstanding and kind. Back then, she relied on her own efforts to get into a top-tier university. She was the best student in our university. She should have had a bright future. My parents should be enjoying their lives instead of working so hard to raise me. So, why can't my kind sister get a good karma? You also know that your parents are working hard to raise you. In that case, you shouldn't do something that will ruin the rest of your life." Chapter 354. In truth, Xiao Jin wasn't very happy to persuade a child. If this person had been a stranger, he wouldn't have cared. However, this girl was Duan Ruyan's little sister. She had just taken Duan Ruyan's demonic spirit seed, so she couldn't just ignore it. Furthermore, her little sister was also a formation master. This family's genes were truly miraculous. It was already difficult for an average family to produce a single magus, let alone 2 magic array masters in one family. There were also very few families like the Zhongli family where both siblings were spirit readers. If Duan Yanru went astray because of this matter and was used by the people who controlled her sister, that would be a tragedy. Duan Yanru was startled. I won't be discovered. You're dreaming. Do you think you're the only one with special abilities in this world? If you dare to make a move, the secret organization will find out where you are in a few days at most and then capture you. If you are caught by the people who used your sister, not only will your life be ruined, your parents won't be able to live either. Duan Yanru was frightened. When she heard that they used her sister, she was shocked. Who used my sister? Your sister is also a spirit reader. Xiao Jin sighed. As if he was teaching a child some small knowledge, he explained the existence of spirit readers in this world, as well as her sister's matter. Since she wanted to take revenge for her sister, she was also someone who valued relationships and righteousness. Then she should know that there were other people behind the scenes. Those who had bullied her sister would suffer retribution. They would punish them in the real world. Karma already existed. Even if the law couldn't punish them, death wasn't the only punishment in this world. While he was talking, the fast food restaurant brought out several plates. There was a large pile of fast food in front of the two girls. At this time, Duan Yanru felt like she had lost her appetite. After listening to Qiao Jin's story, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing. My sister, she really had a bitter life. It was one thing for her to die tragically, but even after her death, she hadn't been able to live in peace for such a long time. Duan Yanru looked somewhat similar to Duan Ruyan, but she had probably been carefully taken care of by her parents since she was young. There was a hot-bloodedness in her that Duan Ruyan didn't have. So when she did such a thing, she didn't consider the consequences. She only thought that she had a special ability that allowed her to do things without being discovered. Now that she knew the severity of the situation, she felt even sadder for her sister. Hearing her sobs, the waiters looked over curiously. Qiao Jin calmly drank a cup of warm orange juice as he watched Duan Yanru cry. A 17 or 18-year-old child was really too young. The waiter didn't know if something bad had happened. He came over to ask Qiao Jin, but Qiao Jin just shook his head. The waiter saw that there was no other abnormality, so he didn't come over to ask. Since they were all in the shop, they could see everything. Duan Yanru cried for over 10 minutes. She couldn't stop crying, and in the end, she started hiccuping. She couldn't even feel her hunger anymore. When she was done crying, she choked with sobs and asked, "Then, who was the one who harmed my sister?" Qiao Jin said, "They'll appear sooner or later. You don't need to be anxious. You're 18 this year. Did you go to university?" Duan Yanru nodded. "I just finished my college entrance exam and came to the capital." Chapter 355. It just so happened that she had just finished her college entrance exam. She had also come to the capital. But compared to her sister, her grades weren't that outstanding. She had only gotten into an ordinary university in the capital. It wasn't far from Qiao Jin's place, and it was only 5 or 6 stops away. Duan Yanru's parents didn't have much hope for her. Perhaps it was because of Duan Ruyan, but they felt that it was better for her to not have outstanding grades. Originally, they didn't want Duan Yanru to choose the capital. After all, something had happened here that had broken their hearts. But after learning that her sister had also entered the capital, Duan Yanru thought of this. She wanted to know if she could find traces of her sister. As a result, she saw the news on Weibo. "My parents have already agreed to move to the capital. They will come to the capital to take care of me." Duan Yanru's parents were still worried. So when she came over, they would rent a house outside to take care of Duan Yanru. Duan Yanru's parents had relied on the compensation money to start a small business. They didn't have to worry about their lives. If it wasn't for Duan Yanru's birth, they might have already lost hope. Qiao Jin didn't care about other people's matters. He only said, "There are advantages and disadvantages to moving to the capital. The capital is different from the cities you've been to. There's the spirit group here. If you don't want to join the spirit group, it's best if they don't know that you're a formation master." This was especially true when the spirit group didn't know about the existence of a formation master. Duan Yanru carefully looked at Qiao Jin. "You said that you made a deal with my sister's soul. Who are you?" Qiao Jin smiled. "I'm just an ordinary second-year student." "Oh, I'll be in my 3rd year soon." Duan Yanru, as if she knew so many things and knew that she was a formation master. How could she make a deal with her sister? How could she be an ordinary university student? Thinking of her sister who had already disappeared, Duan Yanru's expression dimmed. "You're so young, but your ferocity isn't small. You want to kill an entire family as soon as you make a move." Qiao Jin evaluated what she wanted to do. You should know that abilities are bestowed by the heavens, and there are corresponding shackles. If you do something to someone else, it is very likely that they will retaliate against you in the same way in the future. Got it? Duan Yanru frowned. Then what's the use of this ability? Qiao Jin, that depends on how you use it. You can hide your identity and be an ordinary person for the rest of your life and pretend that you don't have this ability. Didn't you maintain it well before? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been discovered for so many years. Duan Yanru lowered her head in silence. Qiao Jin said, "Remember, no one can bind you. What binds you is your own heart. If you have any malicious thoughts, you will be like your sister and be demonized. That is not what your sister wants to see." Duan Yanru looked at her expectantly. Will those people really suffer retribution? Qiao Jin nodded. There will be. Only now did Duan Yanru trust Qiao Jin somewhat. She picked up a hamburger and slowly ate it. What's your name? Qiao Jin had said so much, but she still didn't know Qiao Jin's name. Qiao Jin. Duan Yanru, which character? Qiao Jin. Qiao from Qiao Qian, Jin from today. Duan Yanru nodded. It's a bit strange. How about I call you Big Sister Qiao? Chapter 356. Qiao Jin. Do as you wish. Duan Yanru was younger than her, so she could call her whatever she wanted. Qiao Jin didn't care about this. After all, calling her big sister didn't mean she treated her as a younger sister. Duan Yanru took out her phone. Can I add you as a friend? Ignoring everything else, Qiao Jin was truly handsome. Duan Yanru felt that she could brag to her classmates that she had met a beautiful big sister. Moreover, she wouldn't be alone in the capital in the future. She could look for Qiao Jin. Of course, that was what she thought, but it did not mean that Qiao Jin thought the same. Qiao Jin indifferently took out his phone and added Duan Yanru's WeChat. She had come to persuade Duan Yanru not to let her big sister down. If Duan Yanru still refused to come to her senses, Qiao Jin wouldn't care about her a second time. Duan Yanru had come to the capital very suddenly. She had only booked an ordinary hotel. Qiao Jin sent her to the hotel before leaving. Duan Yanru looked at Qiao Jin's WeChat name and fell into a daze. Such a fairy-like big sister, and her WeChat name was also quite cute. Qiao Jin had gone out in the middle of the night, and by the time he returned, it was already very late. As a result, he just happened to run into Musilian, who had just come back from the disco. Musilian had been tiptoeing around, and the entire Mu family was already very quiet. But who would have thought that as soon as he took a step, he would see a white-clothed figure outside the door? If he hadn't immediately restrained himself, Musilian was afraid he would have screamed out loud. Fuck. Why had Sadako appeared in the middle of the night? Sadako takes 2 steps forward, and Mu Chilian can see clearly with the help of the street lamp that it is his cheap sister. Musilian was almost scared out of his wits. He hastily whispered, "What are you doing out in the middle of the night?" Qiao Jin said, "I went out to play." Musilian, he almost choked to death. She went out to dance and came back like a thief. On the other hand, Qiao Jin went out and came back looking magnanimous. He was not afraid of being found out by Qiao Fei. They both went out in the middle of the night, so why was Qiao Jin so magnanimous? Musilian felt that he had caught Qiao Jin's weakness. Going out in the middle of the night, do you still have any concept of access control? Qiao Jin, how can you say that about me? Musilian, he quibbled, I'm a guy. I'm different from you girls. It's not safe for a girl like you to be outside in the middle of the night. Qiao Jin, no, I'll be safer than you. Musilian, what do you mean by that? However, Qiao Jin was not prepared to explain. She went into the house. Musilian was afraid that talking to her would attract the attention of the family. If Qiao Fei and the others woke up and saw that he went out to dance again, they would probably scold him again. He could do anything, but he was the #1 disco dancer. Look at Qiao Jin, who also went out to fool around, was much more magnanimous than him. Musilian thought of this and felt that he was not found out. What was there to be afraid of? He puffed out his chest and went back to his room valiantly. The glass room was soundproof, so no matter how loud they would not attract the attention of Qiao Fei and the others. What he was afraid of was that Qiao Fei and the others would go crazy in the middle of the night to check on him. It would be awkward if they happened to bump into him. Qiao Jin went back to her room. The demonized spirit seed on her fingertip was dispersing. She looked at it and flicked it into the array in the house. If there was a place in the world that was the safest, it would probably be the Mu family. Even if there was a war, she could protect the Mu family. This was probably the treatment that only family members had. Chapter 357. When he woke up the next morning, Xiao Jin received a special piece of news. At the same time, there was a thank you letter from Lin Sai. The murder case in a foreign town had been solved. Due to China's request and the fact that the murderer was not an experienced person, he was quickly found out. It was a foreign man in his mid-20s. The reason why he did this was because he had promised someone that he would receive a huge sum of money after the deed was done. He was a drug addict and had already been hollowed out by the drug money, so he took the risk to do this kind of thing. The person who invited him to do this had a good relationship with him. He used to know him in school. Originally, everyone thought that this was an accidental murder case. They did not expect that it had already been planned and that he had hired a murderer. The person he wanted to kill was naturally Lin Sai's godsister, Zhao Rulan. The mastermind who hired the murderer was Wei Dushuan. It had only been a few days since the incident broke out. Especially after they found out that Yarrow Hongyin's death was an accident, the school was furious. Because of an accident, such a big thing happened. When the truth was found out, Zhao Rulan could not believe it at all. It was not until the police came to take Wei Dushuan away that the man, who realized that the matter had been exposed, knelt down in front of Zhao Rulan on the spot. Lan, I was just obsessed for a moment. I was just confused for a moment. Zhao Rulan stared blankly at the man who had been so gentle to her 2 days ago. She could not imagine that he would actually let someone raise a butcher's knife against her. Zhao Rulan's mother was so angry that her whole body was trembling. It took her a long time to stop herself from fainting. Although there were speculations, when the truth was really in front of everyone, no one could believe it. She walked up and slapped Wei Dushuan in the face. She gritted her teeth and scolded, "You beast. You're worse than a beast." The police immediately stopped her. "Madam, please don't do anything." Foreign countries paid attention to human rights. Even a confirmed mastermind who hired a murderer had human rights. Naturally, they could not let you beat him up. Of course, they understood the family's anger. Therefore, they gave them a verbal warning. Who wouldn't want to beat him to death after finding out that his son-in-law was the one who hired the hitman? At this moment, Zhao Rulan seemed to have just realized what had happened. She thought of Wei Dushuan's face from before, and then looked at Wei Dushuan, who was now crying bitterly and kneeling on the ground without any dignity. She couldn't help but feel cold all over. Her heart was so cold that it was terrifying, causing her entire body to tremble. Why did you do this?" She seemed to have expended a great deal of energy to ask this question. "I shouldn't have done this. I know I was wrong. Lan, please forgive me. I beg you to forgive me. You still have our child in your stomach. You have to think about the child." Zhao Rulan's eyes were filled with tears. She couldn't help but cry out, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Lan, I was really possessed. I shouldn't have done this. I know I was wrong. Lan, please forgive me. You still have the cheek to talk about children." If Mother Zhao hadn't been held back by Mother Lin, she probably would have killed Wei Dushuan. Lan is still carrying your child in her stomach. How could you do such a vicious thing? You heartless thing. Even after you graduated, you entered the top 500 companies and got promoted because of us. It's fine if you don't know how to be grateful, but you're actually so crazy. You're not a thing, and you're not even human. Chapter 358. Mother Zhao was so angry that she felt dizzy. Mother Lin quickly supported her and comforted her in a low voice. She was also angry. Anyway, now that he had been caught, Wei Dushuan would be punished by the law. It was a good thing that Zhao Rulan saw his true colors. Wei Dushuan was still crying over there. Zhao Rulan only felt that she was numb and couldn't hear anything clearly. Yes, they still had a child. So why did Wei Dushuan not even care about the child and actually want to kill Zhao Rulan? The police didn't let them talk for long and quickly took Wei Dushuan away. Mother Zhao directly found a well-known lawyer in the United States to deal with this matter. She still had some connections. She swore to let Wei Dushuan stay in jail for decades. It was extremely difficult to sentence people to death abroad. Although Wei Dashuan was the mastermind, his main target was Zhao Rulan. Zhao Rulan was fine. Because of this, he was most likely only sentenced to a few decades of punishment. However, there was no limit to the punishment. If the lawyer was strong enough to convict him of a heinous crime, it was possible for him to be sentenced to 70 or 80 years. He would never have a chance to get out of prison. After Wei Dashuan was caught, he still refused to let go of the reason why he wanted to kill Zhao Rulan. In the end, he was forced to break through his psychological defense and finally let go. The thoughts he revealed were truly devoid of conscience. He killed Zhao Rulan, and then he would be Zhao Rulan's legal heir. Even if there was still Mother Zhao and Father Zhao, they were not in good health. Zhao Rulan was the only daughter. If something happened to Zhao Rulan and the child in her belly, they would definitely not be able to hold on for long. Wei Dashuan felt that the more sensitive the situation was, the less suspicious he would be. Zhao Rulan still had his own child in her belly. Who would know that it was its biological father who found someone to kill its mother? He finally tricked Zhao Rulan to that remote town, but he didn't expect such a big accident to happen. He was indeed knocked unconscious at that time. This was all done to make it seem real. The purpose was to make it so that he didn't have a chance to make a move and wouldn't suspect him. As long as the murderer wasn't caught. If Zhao Rulan died, there was no evidence, and he might really succeed. When the news came back, Zhao Rulan didn't know why, but she instantly thought of the sentence that the fortune-teller Lin Sai had told her. This marriage, the family was ruined. The family, the family, the family. It wasn't a joke, it was real. If Wei Dashuan's plan succeeded, then her parents would be stimulated and met with an accident. Her family would be finished and her property would fall into Wei Dashuan's hands. Wouldn't her family be ruined? Zhao Rulan fainted from anger. Lin Sai briefly revealed the facts of Wei Dashuan's crime in his letter of thanks to Qiao Jin. He's not even human anymore. Do you know what he said? My elder sister and her family helped him so much. He thought that they were looking down on him and were just giving him pity. Oh my God, missing is better than past. Master, tell me, what kind of peerless weirdo is this? If my godparents pitied him, why would they marry their precious daughter to him? He was born into a bad family, so he blamed my godsister's family for being too rich. If you think she's too rich, don't fucking marry her. You can be a noble prince, but you actually came up with a plan to kill your wife. You don't even care about your own child. Is this kind of person a natural beast? Chapter 359. Her tone was extremely angry. One could imagine how much of an impact this matter had caused. She was originally tutoring in English during the summer vacation. As soon as this happened, she immediately flew abroad to accompany Zhao Rulan and the others to deal with the follow-up matters. Qiao Jin had already guessed this fact, so he didn't reply. In fact, when she had her fortune told back then, she had roughly known that Wei Dashuan would be the culprit. There was no one else who could be the culprit when it came to marriage. However, she couldn't guess the reason. Now, she knew that there were always people in this world. No matter how good you were to them, they would think that you were deliberately provoking them. They were just cheap. Some people were unsurprisingly despicable, while others were despicable and vicious. After such an experience, Zhao Rulan would probably be traumatized by men, especially this type of man. Of course, what did this have to do with her? Missing is not as good as before. Master, my godmother and my sister want to thank you. I wonder if you have time to meet them. We can visit you. If it's really inconvenient for you, forget it. Today, it's very inconvenient. Missing is not as good as before. Master, I understand. But I really have to thank you for this. You're really amazing. If it wasn't for the fact that the case had to be kept confidential and that this matter had stimulated her sister too much, she couldn't help but want to announce this fortune teller to the entire internet. It was so accurate. It was simply godly. Missing is not as good as before. Shall I make up for my sister's fate package? This was a great calamity of fate. Back then, Lin Sai had been alarmed. Now that Zhao Rulan had truly escaped from the gates of hell, She definitely had to order the most expensive package. Today, there's no need. The 1 million yuan has already been offset. Missing is not as good as before. Wasn't that 1 million yuan donated to the temple? Can it withstand my sister's disaster? Today, this kind of thing, the cycle of karma, is destined. There will naturally be someone there to deal with your sister's 1 million yuan. Whether it will come true or not depends on the subsequent fortune. Your sister has escaped this time, which means that she has enough fortune. This 1 million yuan is appropriate. But sometimes, no matter how much money, no matter how much fortune there is, it can't be offset. It's all personal fate. It can only be said that her life wasn't meant to end. Missing is not as good as before. I don't really understand. I don't understand, but I think it's amazing. But you're really effective. Missing is better than gone. Master, why did you open a cat treasure shop? If you were willing, there would be many people willing to hire you. There would be people willing to pay hundreds of thousands or even millions. Why did you open an online shop, and it's so cheap? Today, I don't lack money. These 3 words explained everything. Lin Sai instantly understood. A master was indeed a master. Look at the height of his thoughts and morals. They were here to benefit society. She did not lack money. That was because she was interested in reading other people's fortunes. If someone was lucky enough to be read by her, wouldn't that benefit society? Lin Sai was incomparably glad that she had met the master back then. Otherwise, her little life would have been long gone. Lin Xiao wanted to continue, but Zhao Rulan, who was lying on the hospital bed, asked her, "Xiao, are you chatting with the master?" Lin Sai nodded. Zhao Rulan was a little expectant. What did master say? No. Lin Sai sighed. Master is probably an expert who wants to hide his identity. Moreover, he said that he is not short of money. He is probably from a super awesome family. Lin Sai was a fan of novels. She could not help but think of the legendary super hermit family written in novels. They were not short of money. All of them were awesome. Chapter 360. Zhao Rulan smiled. In that case, I won't force you. Thank the master for me. Some things were better seen than heard. She didn't dare to be disrespectful to this master who was separated by the internet. These 4 words were enough to describe everything that she had encountered today, including the consequences of her actions. How could she not be afraid? She was too confident. Some things had been passed down for thousands of years and had their own reasons. There was always someone better than you. The master didn't reply. Lin Sai put down her phone and looked at Zhao Rulan curiously. Sister, have you thought about what godmother said? Zhao Rulan's face was a little stiff. Mrs. Zhao was talking about aborting the child. She didn't want Wei Dushuan's bastard child in this family. It wasn't that she didn't believe in her daughter, but she felt uncomfortable with Wei Dushuan's genes. After such a thing happened, she couldn't treat this child calmly, even if it was in her daughter's stomach. In fact, Lin Sai agreed. The child's father was like this. For the future, she didn't recommend her sister to give birth to this child. Zhao Rulan was also a little hesitant. In the end, it was maternal instinct. This was a child connected to her own blood. At this moment, Mother Zhao came in with a sullen face. Zhao Rulan's heart skipped a beat. Mom! Mother Zhao said, Wei Dushuan's family called and said that they want you to write a letter of forgiveness to forgive Wei Dushuan. They also want the child to be born and raised by them. They want us to pay 100,000 yuan a month for living expenses. Speaking of this, she couldn't help but sneer. I didn't even hear an apology. I only heard them farting. Lin Sai couldn't help but shout, oh my god, is this human language? How can there be people under the same blue sky who can become animals? Oh, no, they're worse than animals. After all, they've already given birth to such a son. We should know what the family is like. Zhao Rulan's face darkened. Mother Zhao said, I know you don't want to abort the child, but you have to think about reality. You're raising this child. His father is an executioner who wants to kill you. The child is innocent, but the child's father's family is not. If you give birth to this child, Do you believe that Wei Dushuan's family will definitely not let us off? He only thinks that the only bloodline of their family has been sent to prison by you. Now, this is their only hope. It's their kindness that they didn't cut you into pieces. If you give birth to this child, do you think you'll have a peaceful life? Although they were immigrants, it was impossible for them not to return home. Moreover, Mother Lin and the others were also in the country. Wei Dushuan's parents knew the address. There was also a situation where Wei Dushuan's parents directly broke into the Lin family's house. There was always a lot to consider. Zhao Rulan's heart turned cold when she heard those words. Now that she thought about the future, it did make sense. It was true that she loved her children, but when she thought of Wei Dushuan, she was unable to overcome this hurdle. The woman who used to share his bed with him in the past probably thought about killing him all day long. How was she going to explain this child when he grew up in the future? If she wasn't selfish now, she wouldn't be able to be selfish in the future. She still had her children, her grandparents, and so many relatives. Thinking of this, Zhao Rulan closed her eyes. A few drops of tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Her voice was also filled with incomparable exhaustion. Mom, let the hospital arrange the surgery for me. I don't want to keep this child anymore. Chapter 361. Duan Ruyan's matter was not over yet. The next day, she received an invitation from He Yao. He Yao invited her to dinner, saying that it was an urgent matter. When she arrived, she saw He Yao with Lan Xiaoni. The others were not there. In the cafe, Lan Xiaoni was wearing children's denim overalls and had braids. She was eating the cake in front of her obediently and cutely. There was no trace of the village in the photo. It seemed that He Yao was also a master. Qiao Jin arrived and sat in front of her. Are you in charge of taking care of the child now? He Yao coughed. It can't be helped. Our group is made up of men, and Shaw Dai is still a child. How can we take care of her? I'm not very busy with work, so I can take care of her sometimes. Besides, you know her ability. I feel safer taking care of her. It made sense. Lan Xiaoni ate the cake and looked at Qiao Jin with a smile. Hello. Qiao Jin also smiled. Hello. He Yao said, the matter I'm looking for you is not troublesome, but it's a little troublesome. Qiao Jin. Get to the point. He Yao said awkwardly, there are two main things. One is that an unknown high temperature was found in an apartment building in the capital last night. The spirit group's detectors found a very powerful spiritual wave there. We suspect that a registered spiritual reader has appeared. Fire-type spiritual readers are most afraid of demonized spiritual readers. I don't believe that a normal spiritual reader would attack ordinary residents in an apartment building. Qiao Jin thought of what happened last night and looked indifferent. Oh. Fire-type spiritual reader? Isn't that quite normal? It's not normal if the spiritual wave is strong. The danger level of the other party is not comparable to the demonized spiritual readers we caught before. He Yao was still a little nervous. The entire spirit group is nervous now. The most important thing is that the foreign spirit group is going to visit China at this time, and the leader is a troublesome person. The capital needs to be well protected, so I'm telling you this matter. If you encounter it, this demonized spiritual reader will be yours. Oh, I see. He Yao had good intentions. It just so happened that the spirit group couldn't solve this problem, so she would leave it to Qiao Jin. However, Qiao Jin clearly did not care about this. She was more interested in the spirit group that was going to visit China. A spirit group from overseas. He Yao wasn't surprised that she was concerned about this. She quickly explained, it's the spirit group overseas. However, they are different from our unified spirit group. They are divided into many factions. You know that in Europe, there are many countries with different religions. They are not as close to each other as we are. Therefore, there are many spirit group. This group that is visiting China is one of the most powerful ones, the He Li family. That's right, they usually follow a family system. Those who are accepted into He Li are all super strong spiritual readers. This time, the leader is a woman called Joanna. Qiao Jin's eyes lit up. Wow, That sounds interesting. But this Hurley family, Hiyaro's face was serious. To be honest, they do things very casually. When they came here once, a spiritual reader died for unknown reasons. We all suspected that it was the Hurley family, but we didn't have any evidence. Everyone in their family is ridiculously strong. They don't seem to be from the same world as us. If it wasn't for the fact that we have an overwhelming advantage in numbers, just the Hurley family alone would be enough to fight us. Qiao Jin said, I'm interested in the latter part. Go find that demonized spiritual reader. I'll help you take a look at this Hurley. If he really attacked a spiritual reader, wouldn't this be a free tonic? Hiyaro was speechless. No, that was not what she meant. Chapter 362. Hiyaro's original intention was for Qiao Jin to deal with the matter of the demonized spiritualists, not the Hurley family. Even if there was a problem, the Hurley family could not afford to have a problem in China's territory. Otherwise, who knew what they would do? In this kind of conflict between spiritualists, the victims were usually ordinary people. Hiyaro looked a little troubled. Qiao Jin, although I don't know what your ability is, the spiritualists in this world are really complicated. Even if they are not demonized spiritualists, some people are not necessarily spiritualists who do good. You are just one person. Qiao Jin was just one person. She could not deal with a large group. If she acted too high profile, she would be dealt with sooner or later. Now, the spirit group was monitoring her, but she had shaken them off several times. If the spirit group could not do anything, Hiyaro really did not want to see any ugly situations happen. That's fine. You just have to make sure that I won't do anything to ordinary people, right? Qiao Jin smiled faintly and said, moreover, I'm only helping you with the investigation. If the Hurley family is so arrogant, wouldn't it be bad if they came to China and bullied us? She did not have any concept of national boundaries. However, this body was still a citizen of China after all. Sometimes, she still had to consider her own country's affairs. Hiyaro could not persuade her. She regretted saying this out loud. However, since Qiao Jin knew, it was not a big deal. It was not a secret that Joanna had brought the Hurley family to China. Lan Xiaoni whispered from the side, Godmother, can I eat ice cream? Hiyaro naturally rejected her. No, you can't eat ice cream. Qiao Jin supported her chin and looked at Lan Xiaoni. If a child calls you that, won't it affect your ability to find a boyfriend? What's wrong with that? Hiyaro smiled bitterly, I'm already so old. It's embarrassing for Xiaoni to call me sister. Besides, I'm not interested in dating for the time being. Hiyaro was not young for Qiao Jin. She was almost 30 years old. On the surface, she was a professional manager who did a good job and had a high salary. In addition, she was a spiritual reader with good benefits. For her, as long as she was willing, she could find a boyfriend at any time. She just didn't like it. If a spiritual reader didn't find a suitable spiritual reader partner and only found an ordinary person, it wouldn't be too good. There were many hidden dangers that they could not sense. Therefore, Hiyaro decided not to consider such a matter for the time being. When Hiyaro mentioned this, she was concerned about Qiao Jin. What about you? Now that you're 20 years old, you can find a boyfriend. You're so pretty, it's not a big deal for you to fall in love. You can experience the feeling of falling in love. Dating. Qiao Jin chewed on these 3 words as if she had heard something funny. This kind of thing is too redundant for me. To her, it was better to stay at home and study arrays than to fall in love with someone. Moreover, with her state of mind, she was not suitable for love. Everyone was the same in her eyes. There was no difference. Love was something she had only heard of. How magical was it? She suddenly thought of Xu Rong and Ming Chu. It was probably magical, but it was not suitable for her. Chapter 363. Hiyaro knew that Qiao Jin had a strange temper. She was young, but she seemed to have seen a lot. There was always a kind of maturity that did not conform to ordinary people. This kind of girl's family situation was generally more complicated. Qiao Jin's family was also more complicated. Now that she was in the Mu family, She did not know how her life was. Yarrow was letting her imagination run wild. After chatting with Qiao Jin for a while, she left with Lan Xiaoni. Every time Yarrow saw her, she did not hide it from others. It seemed that she was not afraid of others knowing that she and Qiao Jin had a close relationship. The spirit group was monitoring her, so she could say that she was testing Qiao Jin. However, today, Qiao Jin had just left the place where he met Yarrow when he felt an unusual aura. Someone was following her. The spirit group usually used their own abilities to monitor her, but it did not work on Qiao Jin at all. Modern surveillance would still be able to find traces of her. She would not deliberately erase her figure from the various surveillance videos. She seemed to be calm, but in fact, the aura nearby was under her control. The scattered array points flashed through her eyes one by one. As long as she wanted, she could trap the person who was following her in an instant. She did not move. She just waved her hand and stopped a car, ready to go back to the Mu family. The person who was following her drove at the same time. There was a faintly discernible tension in the air. There was a part of her journey home that was relatively remote because the Mu family lived in a wealthy district. Although it was remote, it was relatively quiet. However, the nearby surveillance cameras were in place. When the car passed by, Qiao Jin clearly felt that the nearby surveillance cameras were flashing strangely. Someone was affecting these things. It was probably to make it easier for them to not leave any traces. At the same time, in the eyes of the driver, a figure suddenly appeared on the bright road. He was not slow to begin with, so he was scared out of his wits. He subconsciously turned the steering wheel, and the whole car made a sharp turn and came to a sudden stop. He almost hit the guardrail on the side of the road. Why is there someone suddenly? The driver cursed angrily. However, when he looked again, he was immediately stunned. There was no one in front of him. Not even a car passed by. Damn, was he seeing things? The driver's eyes widened. He couldn't believe such a ridiculous thing. The car stopped by the side of the road. At the same time, a specially-formed sharp blade came straight at the taxi like a thunderbolt. The sharp blade instantly cut through the rear windshield, and the entire windshield made a loud shattering sound. Just as it was about to pierce through the back of Qiao Jin's head, it stopped there. The driver turned his head and saw the frightening scene. He immediately screamed, "Why did the glass explode? What the hell is this?" Whoosh, 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 3 sharp blades were formed from the air and flew towards Qiao Jin with extreme speed. It was almost possible to hear the sound of them tearing through the air. They came from different directions, carrying with them an unwavering determination. It seemed like they wanted to kill Qiao Jin here. There was even a faint sonic boom in the air. However, just like before, the 3 transparent blades stopped a few centimeters away from Qiao Jin's face, unable to advance even half an inch. Even the driver saw this scene. He was stunned and could hardly describe the strange scene in front of him. After thinking for a while, he probably realized that he had encountered a legendary fantasy event. His eyes rolled back and he simply fainted. Chapter 364. As soon as he fainted, the accelerator of the car began to turn. Under the control of an inexplicable force, the entire car began to move spontaneously. It was extremely fast. First, it moved backward to create a large space, then it suddenly moved forward. Its goal was the guardrail at the edge. Beyond the guardrail was a hillside. At such a speed, it was inevitable that the car would be destroyed and the people would die. The fuel tank in the car was also making a strange rumbling sound, like the sound of boiling water. Qiao Jin sat in the back and did not even move her eyebrows. She only glanced at the driver who fainted from fright and then looked out of the car window. 0.01 seconds after the car slammed into the guardrail, it could not move forward anymore. The strange sound of the fuel tank in the car gradually subsided. Squeak, the tires were still moving forward with all their might. The speed had completely exceeded the limit of the car's endurance. However, the entire car was strangely motionless, as if it was being pressed down by someone, causing the person in the dark to be unable to exert any strength. I knew it. She's definitely not as simple as a sorcerer. How is that possible? The person in the dark gritted his teeth. 3 spiritualists attacked together, and they were all elites. Could it be that they could not kill her? At this moment, the door of the taxi opened with a click. The girl in jeans and flat shoes stepped out of the car. She was dressed very elegantly and casually, but this simple elegance could not hide the kind of immortal aura she emitted. Seeing her come out, the pupils of the person in the dark shrank. They were clearly very far away, but they saw the corner of the girl's lips curl up, and that clear voice that was like the sound of nature. "That's great. If you don't attack, where would I get the spirit seed?" That sentence immediately made the 3 spiritualists' hair stand on end. Spirit seed, the recently disappeared demonic spirit seed, was taken by her. Thinking of this, the 3 spiritualists realized that something was wrong and immediately wanted to retreat. However, in an instant, the wind and clouds rose, and the sky changed color. This change in color was only for them. In their eyes, the sky suddenly darkened as if the sky had turned dark. Streaks of red light suddenly appeared, like streaks of light and shadows of swords. With a chilling sound, they pierced through the sky and accurately bound their positions. The string was like a blade, flickering with a faint red light. It was very troublesome. They had never seen such a terrifying ability before. Their eyes widened. What is this? What ability does she have? Impossible, impossible. How did she do it? She had the ability to predict an attack. What is she? The 3 spiritual readers turned pale with fright. No matter how stupid they were, seeing such a scene, they knew that things were serious. Unfortunately, they were powerless to reverse the situation. Butterflies gradually appeared one after another. They danced gracefully and slowly flew towards the red line. They were clearly far away from Qiao Jin, but they couldn't move. They could only watch as the butterfly slowly flew over. When the flickering light touched them, it was as if they had been vaporized. They didn't even have the chance to scream before they disappeared from the world. The butterfly slowly disappeared, and peace was restored between heaven and earth. It was still sunny outside. The taxi was parked by the roadside. Qiao Jin just stood beside the car. She retracted her hand. The 3 spirit seeds had already vaporized. It wasn't only demonic spirit seeds that could be taken. It would be a waste not to take such a person who came knocking on her door. Chapter 365. Ordinary spiritualists, without demonization, could not be sure if they were a good person. Demonization was completely losing one's mind and being controlled by a demon, so it was not tolerated by heaven and earth. But some spiritualists, while maintaining the mind of a normal person, did not do normal things. She even knew who sent these 3 spiritualists. Feng family. Her lips curled up. Why were they so afraid of death? They knew there was something wrong with her and still sent people to kill her. Qiao Jin felt pity for the 3 spiritualists. It was not easy to cultivate them. The driver gradually woke up. He saw Qiao Jin and his eyes were a little blank. "Miss, what happened?" "Qiao Jin, it's nothing. Drive a few minutes forward. I'm almost home." "Oh," the driver seemed to know nothing. After hearing this, he naturally drove the car forward. He did not even ask why he fainted. When he arrived at the Mu family, Mu Xiangshan was watering the flowers with a kettle. There was also the sound of mahjong in the room, and a few women talking. When Mu Xiangshan saw Qiao Jin, his face immediately darkened. "Is there anything wrong with your mother? Now she even learned to play mahjong. A group of women who don't know anything but mahjong. Useless. Qiao Jin, don't tell me. Tell Fei Fei." Mu Xiangshan, then she would cry and complain to Mu Zhenming. At that time, it would be father and son blaming each other. Sure enough, he was ruthless. Mu Xiangshan snorted coldly and continued to water his flowers. Qiao Jin walked into the house. Qiao Fei and the others were playing mahjong in the hall. In his impression, Qiao Fei never played mahjong. Today, some friends probably came. After going in to take a look, he saw a few noble ladies. After all, Qiao Fei had only come into contact with such a group of noble ladies. The noble ladies were all young and had a good temperament, but Qiao Fei looked the youngest. This was not because she was gifted, but because Qiao Jin's array was very effective on her. Now, the more active she was, the better her complexion was. When she went in, she could even hear a lady playing cards while asking Qiao Fei what brand of condoms he was using recently. She was in such a good state that it made people envious. Qiao Fei smiled and was about to answer when they saw Qiao Jin return. Jin! Qiao Fei shouted happily when she saw Qiao Jin. The other noble women turned their heads. When they saw Qiao Jin, their eyes flashed with surprise. He had heard that Qiao Fei's adopted daughter was quite pretty. He had not expected to see her in person. With this temperament, how many rich girls couldn't compare to her? Qiao Jin was raised by Qiao Fei in a small city. Did the Mu family really raise people? Is this Qiao Jin? She's so beautiful. Sure enough, she was raised by her mother. Look at her beautiful face. She really takes after her mother. Qiao Fei was very happy to hear everyone's praise. She said to Qiao Jin, "Jin, these are my friends." Qiao Jin walked over and nodded slightly. "Hello." He said 3 simple words without any special expression. Then, he stood there in silence. He looked a little taciturn. He didn't like to talk and didn't greet others. He was beautiful, but he probably had a proud personality. 2 of the noble women looked at each other with tacit understanding. Only a woman in a lake green cheongsam glanced at Qiao Jin with a thoughtful look. Chapter 366. Qiao Jin greeted them. Seeing that Qiao Fei had nothing to say, she went upstairs. Once she left, the others started to talk. "Qiao Fei, is your daughter a little talkative?" Qiao Fei only said, "A little." "Sigh, I don't know why, but she doesn't like to talk to people. She doesn't do it on purpose. She's just like that at home. Please don't mind her." "Of course not. I don't mind. She's really beautiful. Why don't I have your good fortune? Not only are my 3 sons so smart and handsome, but even my adopted daughter is so beautiful." Qiao Fei only smiled happily. They had never hidden the fact that Qiao Jin was adopted, so it was right for others to say that she was adopted. The woman in the lake green cheongsam's eyes flickered slightly. She asked, "Qiao Fei, is your daughter 20 years old?" Qiao Fei said, "Yes." She smiled and said, 20 years old is not young. She can try to date. "My son is coming back from abroad. Do you want to let Qiao Jin meet my son? You know that my son is studying at Cambridge. His grades are excellent, and he's not bad looking. Why don't we let them meet?" Her sudden mention of this topic made Qiao Fei's smile freeze for a moment. "I don't think that's a good idea. Jin is only 20 years old," she rejected quickly. When the 2 rich ladies heard this, they looked at the woman in the lake green cheongsam suspiciously. Was she in such a hurry to find a wife for her son? Her son was so outstanding, but how could he not have a girlfriend? Qiao Jin was beautiful and had a good temperament. If it were them, they would also be tempted, but they had heard some rumors, but they were afraid that this woman did not know. If she knew, she would not have said such things. The woman in the lake green cheongsam was called Ma Ruyan. She was Qiao Fei's best friend. The 2 of them had known each other for many years. Ma Ruyan was able to marry her current husband because of Qiao Fei. At that time, Qiao Fei and Mu Junming were together. It was also at this time that Ma Ruyan met the young talents in the same circle. She was quite capable and married one of them, who was her current husband. She did have a son, but in the 10 years that Qiao Fei and Mu Junming were separated, Ma Ruyan occasionally contacted Qiao Fei, but it was not much help. Qiao Fei. Qiao Fei was magnanimous and even kept in touch with her after she came back. Now that she heard that Ma Ruyan wanted to date, Ma Ruyan was unhappy. There is nothing wrong. If they like her, it's good. If they like her, it's good. Let them meet. It's just let them meet. The other 2 noble women thought to themselves in their hearts. Ma Ruyan had always curried favor with those in power and stepped on those in power. Only Qiao Fei was so stupid that she couldn't tell that her son was her own son. He was, after all, the young master of a wealthy family. Why would he call Qiao Fei's adopted daughter directly? Although she was Qiao Fei's daughter, she was just an adopted daughter. Would she really like her? She must have some ulterior motive. Of course, they would not say that out loud. They just watched the show happily. One of them said, "Ruyan, your son is so outstanding. How come he still doesn't have a girlfriend?" Ma Ruyan immediately said, "He said he doesn't have one. Am I not anxious?" "Of course, Xiao Fei, I don't mean anything. I just want the two of them to meet." Chapter 367. It'll be great if the two of them hit it off. Even if they don't, it's just a meeting. Xiao Fei hesitated when she heard Ma Ruyan's words. She was embarrassed to reject her best friend, but she had never asked Xiao Jin. What if Xiao Jin got angry if she agreed? It would be hard to coax her if she got angry. Xiao Fei shook her head. "Ruyan, I think the child is still too young. I'm not in a hurry, and neither is she. Besides, my children all have their own ideas. I'll ask her about this matter. Whether she agrees or not, that's her business." Ma Ruyan knew that Xiao Fei would say that and smiled. "Of course. I still have a photo of my son. Why don't we let her take a look at it before making a decision?" She was very confident in her son's looks. As long as he showed it to young girls who liked to look at handsome faces, they would definitely fall in love. She heard that Xiao Fei's daughter had just come to the capital not long ago. Other than her 3 brothers, she probably hadn't interacted with other young masters. Of course, she could only blame herself for going on a trip some time ago. She wasn't very clear about what was going on in the country. No one told her especially. After all, she didn't have any close friends. She took out her son's photo from her WeChat. Xiao Fei and the other 2 went over to take a look. He was indeed handsome. The boy in the photo was handsome. He smiled confidently at the camera and was dressed in branded clothes. It was obvious that he was the popular type. "Wow, Ruyan's son is so big. He's so handsome. Yes, we haven't seen him for a long time. He's getting more and more handsome." Ma Ruyan smiled in satisfaction at the 2 women's compliments. Xiao Fei also praised after seeing it. Not bad. But so what? There were a few handsome men in her family. Naturally, she felt that he was ordinary. Moreover, she felt that Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were together every day. It wouldn't be easy for them to hit it off. Xiao Fei asked Ma Ruyan to send the photo to herself. Then, she sent it to Xiao Jin. As this matter concerned her, Xiao Jin, who was in the room, heard it clearly. She was amused and speechless. She saw the photo sent by Xiao Fei and asked her how she felt. Xiao Jin replied coldly, "Jin, today, I don't see her. I don't feel anything. Cruel and heartless." Xiao Fei was a little. Ma Ruyan's smile was a little forced. Xiao Fei was a little unhappy. "That's right. I already said that I would respect the child's opinion. If Jin doesn't want to go, what can I do?" She spoke in a soft voice. Ma Ruyan didn't know what to say. She didn't know if she should say it or not. The other 2 people could tell that there was something wrong with Ma Ruyan's eagerness. They were secretly happy. They would have more gossip to share when they went back. Since Xiao Jin didn't agree, this casual mention could only end in failure. At this moment, Song Yanqing texted Xiao Jin to relieve his boredom after work. Xiao Jin told Song Yanqing about what happened just now. Song Yanqing, he hadn't seen her for a day. How did things change so quickly? The handsome man in the office building couldn't help but frown. Chapter 368. Song Yanqing could only say, "After all, he is an excellent boy. It is reasonable for Auntie to have these considerations. Powerful little friend, how is he excellent? Mayu Heavenly Palace is in decline. He is eager for sex and pretends to be fake. His academic problems are most likely faked. He also has a romantic debt. He will have an accident because of a woman." Song Yanqing, he looked at this paragraph, and the corners of his lips were slightly raised, overflowing with a chuckle. He was thinking too much. Children always looked at problems differently from him. He was really thinking too much. He thought that the hint he gave everyone was clear enough. Before there was progress, At least others would not be so tactless to say anything to the Mu family. Qiao Jin was just an adopted daughter, which also led many people to hesitate even if they thought she was excellent. However, it was also the best protection. At least not so many people would be enthusiastic about her. He typed a line of words, 20 years old, it is actually okay to fall in love. It was just that before he finished typing, Qiao Jin's faint eyes flashed in his heart. He saw the lack of desire in those eyes. He sighed slightly, deleted this sentence, and only typed, have a good rest. Powerful little friend, I met a spiritual reader who wanted to kill me this afternoon. Seeing this sentence, Song Yanqing got up and walked to the glass window. He called Qiao Jin with a slightly gloomy expression. What happened? Qiao Jin was not surprised to see him calling. She told what happened just now, and she also said lightly, it was a test, and they also underestimated me. I took the spiritual seeds of the three of them, and I didn't let them send the news back. The Feng family doesn't dare to guess if I did it for the time being. If she was the one who did it, killing 3 spiritual readers by herself and making them disappear without a trace was definitely not something that could be done by an ordinary person. The Feng family would be on tenterhooks. If they were bold, the ancestor would directly take action, or he would report to the people behind him. But this idea was really too scary. Qiao Jin was too young. They would think that there was someone protecting Qiao Jin behind her. But no matter what kind of guess it was not good for them. It was only a matter of time before the person behind the scenes showed up, unless he wanted to see the Feng family really be finished. Song Yanqing's voice was cold. Is it the Feng family? Qiao Jin said with certainty, it's the Feng family. The person who assassinated her would have karma, and the karma would be traced back to the Feng family. The Feng family was probably not going to be peaceful again, although they had not been peaceful during this period of time. But now, things were even more chaotic. Song Yanqing knew, and Qiao Jin knew that it was the Feng family, but they had no evidence. They could only use the method of a spiritual reader master to solve it. He exhaled softly. I understand. On the surface, it was not good to fall out with them, but in the dark, they had to secretly make a move to make the Feng family suffer a bit. In terms of spiritual sense, there was Qiao Jin. He was very good at business. Now that the Feng family was in chaos, what was the harm in making them more chaotic? Qiao Jin suddenly said another sentence, if possible, let your aunt divorce the person from the Feng family. If she doesn't want to, let that person leave as soon as possible. Her karma was too strong. In the end, the Feng family had caused so many deaths. They had done such a vicious thing like borrowing luck. When the time came, the revenge would be doubled. Even if they were innocent, they might be implicated. After all, they were in the Feng family, and they were blessed by the Feng family. After Song Yanqing heard it, it was rare for him to be silent. If ordinary people said so, it would be fine, but it was Qiao Jin who said it. Song Yanqing said, I will tell her. Chapter 369. It was not a good idea to ask others to divorce. To put it bluntly, it was destroying other people's marriage. To put it bluntly, his aunt had to explain. Song Yanqing couldn't tell her about Qiao Jin's matter. He didn't want Qiao Jin to be in any danger. However, he had his own way to tell his aunt. After hanging up the phone, Song Yanqing began to think about this matter. On the Feng family's side, it was not very calm. The old man with the birdcage was originally strolling on the street. When he received a call, he sat down on the side of the road with a gloomy face. The bird in the cage felt the terrible atmosphere around it at this time, and it didn't dare to make a sound. The old ancestor looked at the white sky with a strange smile at the corner of his mouth. He had done so many things and maintained the Feng family for so many years. Now this big family should prosper and multiply, and no one could stop it. He wanted to meet this girl in person. If it didn't work, he could only inform the other side. The other side wouldn't just watch the foundation of the arrangement be broken step by step. The old ancestor closed his eyes. Before this, he absolutely didn't believe in karma. He had the strength to be able to isolate such a thing. It was not karma. Now that strange things were happening in the Feng family one after another, He had to take it seriously. There were 4 juniors in the Feng family who had an accident. There were also people who kept having accidents in the business field. It couldn't be suppressed even if he wanted to. Even outsiders were wondering if the Feng family's luck had come to an end. Why did it fall step by step like it was cursed? The more glorious it was before, the more embarrassing it was now. And all of this was, since he saved the junior of the Feng family. What did she do? What did she do? Thinking of this, the old ancestor called the people in the family with a gloomy face. When Feng Fei he received a call from the people in the family, she was a little frightened. She hadn't been there for a while. Every time she went, she was inexplicably afraid of that strange place. Now that she was suddenly called over, she felt that it was not a good thing. Sixth uncle, in the luxurious car, she leaned on sixth uncle's shoulder, and her body trembled slightly. What does the old ancestor need to see me for? I don't know about that. The man she called sixth uncle was sitting beside her at this time, but his hands were on her buttocks, kneading from time to time. It could be imagined that the two of them had an improper relationship. He blew into Feng Fei his ear. Don't worry, sixth uncle is here. For my sake, great ancestor will not do anything to you. Feng Fei he held back her disgust. Seeing that the hand was getting more and more impudent, she couldn't help but feel sad. If it wasn't for their own lives, who would be willing to ruin themselves like this? Feng family. The Feng family was a man-eating demon's den. For an illegitimate daughter like her, if she didn't have any ability, she would be reduced to a plaything for this group of middlemen. When Feng Fei he was in trouble, if Zhu didn't want to investigate the cause of the matter, he wouldn't have asked the great ancestor to save her. This sixth uncle was a very favored branch of the great ancestor's side. His status in the Feng family was very high, but it was also disgusting. The Feng family was used to the things they did. It was the kind that outsiders absolutely hated. He took a fancy to Feng Fei he, and in exchange, the great ancestor didn't stop him. Thinking of this disgusting fact, Feng Fei he really wanted to kill them sometimes, but she didn't have the ability. She closed her eyes and pretended that she didn't feel anything. Chapter 370. When they arrived, there was only a dark practice room. She knelt on the ground. She was a proud girl in school, but here, she was just a lowly person. Sixth uncle stood beside her and spoke to the void for her. Great ancestor, what do you want to tell Feihe this time? As soon as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly appeared and slapped him in the face. Get out of here first. This voice contained a huge murderous aura. It was obvious that he didn't put sixth uncle in his eyes. Sixth uncle was so scared that his whole body trembled. There was no longer a proud look on his face when he spoke for Feng Fei he. He rolled and crawled out. He was all-powerful in the business world outside, but he was just a piece of trash here. When Feng Fei he saw sixth uncle being slapped, she realized that something was wrong. She knelt on the ground in fear and didn't dare to raise her head. She could only feel a cold figure in the room. What on earth did you do? What else have you not told me about the matter back then? When Feng Fei he heard this, her whole body froze. She did have things that she hadn't told him, such as the matter of her harming Qiao Jin. But at that time, Qiao Jin was just an unloved adopted daughter. Moreover, she felt that she didn't have the ability, so she didn't say this small matter. She had offended a lot of people. So much so that she could only vaguely say that she was targeting Qiao Jin. But she didn't say it in detail. She didn't expect to be caught and investigated now. She had a premonition that the great ancestor might want to know about this matter. Seeing her frightened face, the voice became more irritable. Are you forcing me to use the soul-searching array? If I use it, you will be a fool for the rest of your life. Think about it carefully. Feng Fei he was so scared that she burst into tears. No, great ancestor, please don't. I'll say it, I'll say it. I did tell you almost everything back then. I don't dare to hide anything from you. I just some things, maybe it's been too long, I can't remember them clearly. That Qiao Jin. Yes, Qiao Jin. I didn't like her at that time, so I found a woman to deal with her. I got close to her, led her astray, and tricked her into taking drugs. That night, I was even going to find someone to take a video of her, but I didn't expect her to run away, so I didn't succeed. As for the rest, I really don't know anything else. There was really nothing left. I don't know what went wrong either. No, impossible. The great ancestor affirmed. Feng Fei, he could even hear his footsteps walking around. If that's the case, even if she awakens as a psychic because of anger, she can't have such a strong ability. What's the problem? Is there someone protecting her behind her back? No. The grand ancestor's murmur shocked Feng Fei he. She vaguely knew about spiritualists, but she had never thought that Qiao Jin would become a spiritualist. Is a spiritual reader a person with special abilities like the great ancestor? Then why is it Qiao Jin? Why can't it be me? Thinking of this, she was crazily jealous of Qiao Jin. There's something wrong with your memory. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. The great ancestor's cold words came. Feng Fei, he only felt a chill in her heart. She had a feeling of complete regret, but nothing could be done. A sharp pain came from the top of her head. She closed her eyes. After that, she couldn't remember anything. Chapter 371. Did something happen to Feng Fei he? What happened again? Early in the morning, such an unexpected topic appeared at the Mu family's dining table. As for the old man, he had already disappeared without a trace after breakfast. He most likely went for a walk. Musichu spoke first, and Musilian asked, what happened to her? Qiao Fei was also very curious. What happened again? Mu Zhenming's expression was a little serious. She went crazy. Crazy? Qiao Fei was a little surprised. How did she go crazy all of a sudden? Qiao Jin, who was eating his breakfast slowly, was focused on eating and did not care about these things. Musilian was also shocked. He sat up straight and looked at his father. How did she go crazy? When did she go crazy? Why didn't I know? Qiao Fei, you dance every day. What do you know? Musilian, this is too much. You didn't know at home either. Mu Zhenming sighed. She was found on the street last night. It is said that she tore her clothes and went crazy. The passers-by found her and called the police. Her mother took her back and sent her abroad overnight. I'm afraid she won't come back for the rest of her life. After such a thing happened, even Feng Fei, his mother, did not have the face to let her come back. A family like theirs could be shameless, but when such a crazy thing happened, how could they tolerate it and not let others talk about it? Musilian was a little confused. How did she go crazy just like that? Wasn't she fine a while ago? There were no signs at all. Or is she usually mentally ill? Anyway, I think so. Qiao Fei was also a little regretful. It's a pity that she's a girl. How did she go crazy at such a young age? Musilian looked at Qiao Jin. Look at Qiao Jin. What's so strange about going crazy at such a young age? Didn't she go crazy for a while too? Fortunately, she did not run to the street and tear her clothes. Musichu picked up a sandwich and stuffed Musilian's mouth. Shut up. Musilian angrily took a bite of the sandwich. Brother, aren't you glad now? Back then, Feng Fei, his parents, came to our house to force us to get married. Now, she's gone crazy, and you don't have to worry anymore. Musichu just glanced at him and didn't say anything. Qiao Jin focused on finishing his breakfast. When he wiped his mouth with a tissue, he said, she's just going abroad. How do you know that she won't come back after she's cured? I'm already crazy. How is that possible? After causing such a huge commotion, even if I recovered, I wouldn't have the face to come back. Qiao Jin smiled mysteriously. That's why your skin isn't thick enough. Musilian, what was the meaning of this? Mu Zhenming frowned and pondered. Qiao Jin, what do you mean by that? Qiao Jin, nothing, I'm just talking nonsense. Musilian shouted, see, I told you, she's definitely not normal. I suggest you send her to the hospital for another checkup. She's so weird every day. Qiao Fei, shut up, how can you talk about your sister like that? Are you even human? Musichu, he's not human. Musilian. Fine, you guys attack me together. Just you wait. In this family, it's either her or me. It's either me or her, Mu Junming. If you don't apologize to your sister, you won't have any pocket money this year. Qiao Jin, apologize. Mu Zillion. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Qiao Jin nodded. I don't want to forgive you for the time being. With that, he left. Mu Junming also wiped the corner of his mouth. There's no pocket money this month. Mu Zillion, she's really not human. Chapter 372. The news that Feng Fei he suddenly went crazy still caused a stir in the upper-class society for a while. Her parents also left Huaxia and probably would not return to Huaxia in their lifetime. If they were thick-skinned. It was said that Feng Fei he was even photographed in disheveled clothes at that time. If it were not suppressed quickly, it would probably become another embarrassing thing for the Feng family. Recently, Qiao Jin's fortune-telling shop was doing well. Although the price was expensive, there were many fortune-tellers. However, most of them were asking about marriage or small things. If Qiao Jin was accurate, others were willing to spend the money. Gradually, she became more and more famous, and the number of fans on Weibo had increased to 1 million. However, she never revealed her information, so no one knew whether she was a man or a woman. After a rough calculation, the shop was doing well, and she had earned tens of thousands. These tens of thousands were really nothing to the Mu family, but the premise was that Qiao Jin never took the Mu family's money. Basically, she had never touched the pocket money that Qiao Fei gave her. When she took out the tens of thousands, Qiao Jin was in a good mood. She thought that Song Yanqing had treated her to several meals, and this time it was her turn to treat him. Before she sent a message to Song Yanqing, a special business came to the shop. The other party directly chose the most expensive set meal, which was 99999. Looking for a fortune teller on the internet at this price, he was probably introduced by an acquaintance. The other party only gave a name and birthday. Obviously, he was familiar with Qiao Jin's rules. Qiao Jin looked at the name and birthday, was a little surprised, and then directly replied. Today, no need. She won't live long. The other party was not in a hurry to reply. After a long time, he slowly sent a sentence. Is there no chance to save her? This fortune teller was a little strange. His fate line was very strange. Qiao Jin saw a mess through the array. She probably needed to see the real person to confirm some information. Today, basically no. Anonymous buyer, thank you. Today, you don't have to be so expensive. I'll refund you the money. Just give me a normal price. Anonymous buyer, it's okay. This money is nothing. Although the result was not very good. Rich people were quite capricious. Qiao Jin just shook her head. She was only doing her job as a fortune teller. There was no need for her to look at the other party. It was true that he didn't have long to live. He was quite polite. She took out her phone and sent a message to Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing made an appointment with her at night. The restaurant this time was the Japanese restaurant she had eaten at last time. She could afford the price of a meal, but she did not expect to meet Fan Jin and Phoenix Chen Yen. There were private rooms in the Japanese restaurant, but when the waiter took Qiao Jin to the private room, they passed by a private room and the door was not closed. She saw Fan Jin and Phoenix Grace sitting inside. Phoenix Grace also saw Qiao Jin. It only took a glance to notice Qiao Jin. Phoenix Chen Yen saw her but did not greet her. Qiao Jin obviously didn't need to greet him. He just turned his head and let the waiter lead him to the private room. Fan Jin, on the other hand, also saw Qiao Jin and was stunned for a moment. Hey, Phoenix Grace smiled and looked at her. Sister, what's wrong? Fan Jin said, I think I saw that girl in the coffee shop last time. Because she had a very unique temperament, she had a deep impression. She had not forgotten until now. Is that so? Phoenix Chen Yen just smiled lightly. Sister's memory is really good. Chapter 373. It's because she's too beautiful. It's unforgettable. Fan Jin sighed. At this moment, 2 more people passed by outside. Led by the waiter, Fan Jin turned around and her smile instantly froze. The person in her memory appeared again. She really couldn't describe how she felt in her heart. Although she had been traveling and relaxing during this period of time, her mood had improved a lot. Only now did she know that as long as she saw this person again, her mood would become very, very bad. The other party was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He had an imposing appearance and the elite aura of a mature man. A pair of silver-white thin-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose. He had an ascetic and calm aura. He wasn't alone. There was a beautiful woman in a limited edition dress holding his hand. She was noble, elegant, and generous. She looked very compatible with him. Perhaps Fan Jin's existence was very abrupt. When the other party turned around and saw her, his expression froze for a moment. This absent-mindedness was only for a moment. He quickly looked away as if nothing had happened and walked forward with the woman. Feng Qianen noticed Fan Jin's ugly expression. He also saw the man in a suit passing by. His eyes immediately lowered slightly. There was some doubt in his voice. "Sister." Fan Jin was brought back to her senses by his call. She was only a little stunned. "Yes," Feng Qianen smiled. "Do you know the man just now?" Fan Jin subconsciously denied. "No, I don't know him." She denied it too quickly, but it was easy to hear the problem. Her expression was very gloomy now. It was visible to the naked eye. How stupid would Feng Qianen be to believe that they didn't know each other? Of course, he wouldn't ask. He only thought of the man just now. His eyes were slightly gloomy, but he quickly covered it up. Qiao Jin was sitting in the private room next to them. Although it was completely soundproof, her spiritual perception was special. She could hear the movements next door if she wanted to. In addition, the door of the private room was not completely closed. She also saw Jiang Chunji. Of course, she didn't know Jiang Chunji, but Fan Jin had asked her to read her fortune. She could recognize this person when she saw him. Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't expect to meet in this shop. It was really fate. Qiao Jin arrived early. By the time Song Yanqing arrived, Phoenix Chen Yen had already closed the door to the private room. Song Yanqing did not know that his cousin was also here. When he arrived at the private room, he saw Qiao Jin sitting there and smiled gently. "I'm a little late for the meeting. If you're hungry, you can eat first." "I'm fine." Qiao Jin looked at her phone for a while. She passed the time quite quickly. When Song Yanqing arrived, the chef came in to prepare the dishes for the two of them on the spot. "Did you make money by treating me to a meal? I've never heard of you working part-time. How did you earn so much money?" Song Yanqing was just curious. Qiao Jin didn't hide it from her. "I opened a fortune-telling shop online and made some money." She even showed Song Yanqing her fortune-telling shop. Chef, never would he have thought that such a beautiful young lady would actually become a fortune-teller and deceive others. Nowadays, the things on the internet that could be used for fortune-telling were definitely fake. This was the opinion of a chef who worked in a luxurious Japanese restaurant. With outsiders around, Song Yanqing didn't ask much. She just smiled. "You really know how to think of a way." "Qiao Jin, millimeter," as she answered. Song Yanqing suddenly frowned and his face paled visibly. Qiao Jin immediately asked, "What's wrong with you?" Song Yanqing shook her head. "Nothing." She just suddenly felt her heart palpitate and was extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 374. Qiao Jin noticed that there was a black gas floating on Song Yanqing's forehead. He was with her now, so there shouldn't be any accidents. There was still a death aura on his body because the disaster hadn't passed yet. His body was still weak, but he was much better than before. Why was there a fluctuation in his death aura? Qiao Jin directly reached out and touched Song Yanqing's forehead. It was warm and a little hot. She said, "You have a fever." Song Yanqing said, "I often have this. I'll be fine after a while." His body wasn't very good. This kind of low fever from time to time was just a small symptom. Qiao Jin said, "Something's not right." She sensed an unusual aura. That aura came from outside the door. She stood up and walked over to open the door, just in time to see two people appear in the private room. Two men. The two men were also very tall and looked somewhat similar. They should be twins and looked handsome. But one of them was wearing a mask and covered himself tightly. He coughed from time to time and looked more fragile than Song Yanqing. The person next to him whispered, "I said, if you want to eat, you can ask the chef to cook at home." The voice was clear and sounded very young. The other person's voice was a little weak. "I just wanted to come out and walk around." After he said this, the man who spoke earlier frowned. A trace of heartache and guilt flashed across his face. In the end, it was not easy to say. They noticed that Qiao Jin suddenly opened the door and were a little surprised. The man wearing a mask subconsciously avoided Qiao Jin's face. He even tried hard to look at the ground and didn't dare to raise his head. Through the edge of his nose that wasn't covered tightly, Qiao Jin saw a certain black mark on the skin of his face. It didn't look like normal skin. Song Yanqing was just about to ask Qiao Jin why he opened the door when he heard the noise. He stood up and came to the door. When he saw the person, he was a little surprised. Sunan. Su Xiu. Qiao Jin thought that people were really casual with their names these days. But when she heard the name, she still raised her eyebrows. The two boys were surprised to see Song Yanqing. They stood there hesitantly. Brother Yanqing? Light Mouth was quite familiar with him. He probably had a good relationship with Song Yanqing. After being surprised, Song Yanqing's expression returned to normal. He nodded slightly. Coming out to eat? One of the boys who wasn't wearing a mask nodded. Yes, Brother Yanqing. I didn't expect you to be here. As he spoke, he looked at Qiao Jin, who was beside Song Yanqing, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. She probably didn't expect Song Yanqing to have a girl by his side. It seemed that the rumors were true. Qiao Jin stood there quietly without taking the initiative to speak. Song Yanqing introduced them to her. This is Su Nan and Su Xiu. He then turned to the two brothers and said, this is Qiao Jin. He did not introduce his background, only his name. The two brothers nodded. But one of them still had his head down, as if he didn't want to look at others. When Song Yanqing saw him, a trace of deep thought flashed through his eyes. Then you guys eat slowly. Okay. The one who answered was still the boy without a mask. It wasn't until Song Yanqing brought Qiao Jin into the private room and closed the door that Qiao Jin asked with a smile, were those twins just now? Song Yanqing nodded. He seemed to be hesitating. Before he could speak, Qiao Jin suddenly said, the death aura on his body is really similar to yours. No wonder you feel uncomfortable. Song Yanqing looked at her with a little surprise. You noticed? Qiao Jin raised her eyebrows. Of course. Chapter 375. The following topic was obviously not suitable for others to hear, so Song Yanqing asked the chef to leave. The chef only made 2 simple dishes for them and left the rest to him in the kitchen. Although the chef was a little surprised, he was very wise not to disturb them. After Qiao Jin sat down, he said, some things are really unpredictable. When I came out in the morning, a very generous customer came to my fortune-telling spot and gave me Su Xiu's information. Su Xiu is the boy with the mask just now, right? The business she received in the morning was about Su Xiu. When she read his fate, she saw that he would not live long. The fortune-teller should be his brother, Su Nan. Looking at Song Yanqing's expression, it was obvious that he knew something. Sure enough, when Qiao Jin said this, Song Yanqing said, what a coincidence. Although he said this, his expression was a little serious. Su Xiu had an accident when he was young and his body has some problems. Even if you don't know, I was planning to ask you after a while. I didn't feel it before, but after I became a spirit master, I could feel many things that I couldn't before. I saw a special aura on Su Xiu's body. Someone put a formation on him. You can basically see it as a curse. Qiao Jin directly told him about Su Xiu's situation. Evil spirit array, he won't live long. Song Yanqing paused. Won't live long? Qiao Jin nodded. Yes, this formation is very vicious. If it wasn't a fatal hatred, it's hard to imagine that it would be used on a child. The formation on his body has been maintained for more than 10 years. Song Yanqing nodded and sighed. What's an evil spirit array? Qiao Jin thought for a moment and said, I told you about the formation points before. In fact, every formation master can see different formation points. Sorcerers also had powerful abilities, such as spatial teleportation and even time reversal. Sorcerers did have these abilities as well. It's just that wizards have a single but powerful ability. A spell formation master is a hybrid version of a magus. They can have multiple abilities at the same time, but these abilities are also released through the use of spell formations. Some array masters can only see ordinary array points in their entire lives. For example, the most common natural array points are the natural abilities of magi. Elements like metal, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, lightning, and rain can be used on you to change your life chart. This includes curse array points, time array points, and space array points. There are very few array masters who can find these array points. These array points basically only exist in places like mausoleums or mass graves, or places that are difficult for humans to reach. The evil ghost formation is a type of curse formation. The person who casts the curse will use their life as the price to seal the evil ghost on the person in the formation, causing the person's face to fester and become as ugly as the evil ghost. From the day the formation was set up, the person will not live for more than 20 years. The evil part of this formation is not the death, but the continuous torture for 20 years, as well as the psychological pressure on the person. Basically, the person in the formation will not be able to last for more than 20 years. The price is also very high, basically using their own life as the price. That's why I say, how much hatred does someone have for him to use such a formation on him? Song Yanqing listened to Qiao Jin's explanation and his expression became more serious. Su Xiu was only 3 years old. Who could he have offended? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.